with some of them too.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is the meeting of the Carlisle Select Board on Thursday, February 16th. And the agenda is really, the first part of it is a continuation of the discussion that we had on Tuesday around the budget. First, we'll have community input if there's anyone that would like to give some, and then we'll continue our discussion about the budget. And then we will conclude by talking with Aubrey, our Human Resources Administrator, about the bylaw change that will be on the town meeting warrant. Is there anyone here or online that would like to offer community input at this time? All right, well, seeing none, I'm going to move on then to the budget discussion. Of course, it's a little hard to have this with David, without David here. But let's begin. So here's my suggestion about how we try to move through this tonight, that we start first with the operating budget and see if we can reach a conclusion around the expenses that are outside, excuse me, the guidance budget. And if you refer back to the sheet we had for our meeting on Tuesday, it's the one that starts off with revenue notes, I think is the heading. Yeah. You can see well, actually, there's an expense reduction section at the top, but then below that is what was being referred to as the deficit analysis. And that outlines the 6 items that were outside the guidance budget. And we had a fair amount of discussion about the sustainability position. We didn't really talk at length about the others. So my hope would be we can determine where we stand on those additional items. And as part of that, obviously, people are going to want to discuss where would the funds come from, or what expenses would we reduce in order to be able to accommodate that in our operating budget and staying within our guidance framework. And one of the things that we talked a little bit about on Tuesday, but I would just like to reiterate is because it's something that the board, we've talked about generally as a board, which is that we, one of our goals was to try to keep the impact on taxes as low as possible. And David and Ryan and I met yesterday to just do some planning around tonight, but also future meetings, and felt that if you look down at the bottom of the levy analysis, which shows the average tax bill and then annual increases, that if we could, and again, I know it's imperfect because it's an average, but if we could keep us under 500 for the increase, that would be desirable, given both the year we're in, what's happened with some tax assessments in town, what's happening with inflation, that would be a desirable target. Now, again, I'm speaking for myself on that one, but I think it might be useful for us as a board to see if we're in agreement in general about trying to keep that tax bill low. And then we can come back up to the discussion about the expenses and the additional requests. That,
When you talk about,
yes, please.
you talk about $500, you're talking about the annual increase, which is the $518 on the
Correct.
tax bill for the town of Carlisle. I just
Yeah.
wanna make sure
Yep.
we're all-
Based on the FY24 budget that is does not have those additional items in it that are referenced above. Yeah, thanks, Travis.
That there's gonna be somebody at 250 additional and somebody at
They're never gonna be
100,000. Nobody is going to.
Nobody's average.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
okay, well,
That's why
But-
that's why it's the percentage that matters, not. That's right.
Right, but
it worries
yeah,
me
yeah.
yes, but that average is generated by a percentage. So I think it would be better to talk about percentage because, yeah.
Yeah, we certainly can do that. I just know that, you know, from the standpoint of the public and what gets published in the Mosquito, that dollar amount is also going to get talked about.
It will,
Yeah.
but that's the fact, precisely would rather do
That
the
percentage
the
be?
percentage because
Yeah,
when you get your bill and you say, wait, mine's 750 more, and they said was going to be 500, that I feel that would generate more problems than
Mhm.
help.
so
So
what would that percentage be then? Did you do the
Math right, 3.15?
3.1 or?
It was 3.22.
Okay. So if we're comfortable with that general notion,
Unless you
Um,
want it to be below 3 or something. but-
say three, just say,
oh, okay, it's up there for us to look at. That's helpful. Thanks.
You could run the math right now, real time in that and get us to see what 3 would be. Just to,
Because you've got 3.15 there.
well, I mean, just ask.
Yeah.
That's what 518 is.
Right, right. It's up there on the, yeah.
Right, but if you go, 1.
492 is 3.09,
That's from the previous.
1.02, 1.03
which is
times
what it was.
15.
It's that's from 23, right? So if we
It's
tried to make this year,
16,408. You'd have to cut $40 more.
reasonable,
Right, in today's inflation, yes.
right?
I agree.
All right, everybody comfortable?
That's an all-in increase, right?
That's all in. yeah.
That's all in. Because this doesn't count all the other things.
Correct,
No, well, we're gonna get there, but
right.
Yes.
This is just the
we
current,
wouldn't layer on other taxes. Anything else we add is.
That's just reduce.
we either have to find more revenue or
well,
cut
we have to
other
use another
expenses.
Source.
different.
Yes.
source of revenue.
Yeah, sorry, right, a different source.
You say no,
Correct.
or you pay for it some other.
That's
So we're starting with consensus opinion.
Yeah.
of What our ceiling is for the increase.
Are we good on that?
So are we saying 500 or 518 or?
We're gonna go with the percent.
3%.
3.1 or 3 point, whatever you want to say. What is
We could say 3%, just as a-
3%?
16,408 is 3%. Again, it's still an average, right? I mean,
right,
it's
okay.
Still an average.
yep, so 16, yep. So that's 3%. Okay. Okay, if we're good with that, we're going with 3%. Then let's move back up to the previous page that talks about the revenue, that the heading is revenue notes. Ryan, do you have that one you can put up?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, so why don't you walk us just through briefly the expenses? I know there's been, these are the items that Ryan is suggesting can be reduced. This is the amount of a reduction in these expenses. And you want to just quickly walk us through that again?
Sure. So if you're reducing expenses, there's 2 things to worry about. One, you wouldn't have enough to cover a specific cost, which would mean you need to cover it either from a reserve fund or another transfer. And the second thing is non-expended accounts turn into free cash. So the more you constrict your operating budget or tighten it up, the less free cash you'll generate. Just something to know. So I know you know that, I'm talking more to the public. So the first line from the town administrator's budget, the Ripley capital was included in this year's budget to cover the cost while something bigger was figured out. There is no cost for the Ripley building. So this can be reconsidered in the capital budget. So this can be removed without any budget impact. For the small capital line, we increased this to 25,000 to match what we had done with MFC funds for small maintenance projects in town buildings. This could be consolidated from other departments. The library, the police, and town hall all have maintenance budgets. We could condense those down and cover that $25,000 cost that way. So it's a $25,000 relief off the FY24 budget. The regional school reduced their assessment after we had published this initial draft of the budget. So that's a known decrease of 16,000. The blanket and workers' comp insurance You'd be assuming a little bit of risk here with costs. We know that the costs are going to increase about 7% based off of calculations that we've done. We also had to increase this budget because we've done transfers on it for the last couple of years. We believe it'll come in at around 380,000 right now. We have, with this $10,000 cut, it would be around 390. So we still have a little bit of cushion. So you can assume pretty reasonably some risk there.
That's an increase in the insurance cost, the 380 to 390 or whatever.
Yes,
Okay,
blanket insurance.
blanket insurance. So that's like a very minuscule percent.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Of increase in insurance cost. I don't know, I'm just asking because I think the insurance continues to go up.
Yeah, about 8% per year.
So that factors in that 8%.
Yes.
Plus a little bit.
Because we assumed it was 10% increase, so we can back it down. And then
I see.
the reserve fund. So if you hold a 12% reserve with your free cash and stabilization, which is the target of this board and the FinCom, then your in-year reserve fund does not have to be as great. So although we put it at 200,000, 150,000 would be fine, assuming some risk there. So you do have reserves and others to cover, any unknown costs. We've never had to really expend that account fully or not had another way to transfer money, even in a bad snow and ice year. So it's okay to assume some risk here. It's not best practice, but it can adjust down to cover other costs. And then one more we've identified. So I'm gonna show you the exact line item because you haven't seen it yet.
So that's the red line.
Where did it go?
I know,
Isn't that great?
Yes.
it is, because
And-
even we can see it
And then I
from
put
here,
up
right?
the smallest lines you could see even on a giant screen. So the vocational schools, what's included in this is mandatory costs we pay to Minuteman and Neshoba, and then the transportation costs that are included there. Transportation costs are pretty known at around, and I would not decrease this budget of 45,000. We have, assuming a similar increase, it's a $15 per day increase at 180 days, puts us just under 45,000 for that transportation costs. Next year, we have 2 students who require that. Talk to the company and feel pretty confident in that number. The other one is for 2 students who, 2 and then maybe 3 who attend our vocational schools. One of them is graduating. So this will be a reduction in cost. So we believe we can bring that number down to 100,000 and still have the ability to cover a student who went there. We would not be able to cover 2, but we don't think, given the enrollment possibilities right now, that's even conceivable. So this is over budgeted and can come down to accommodate other needs, but about $30,000 gain to this budget.
So the $126,000 figure under expenses, you're raising it by another 30,000
No.
to 156,
Yes.
Do it.
right? Okay,
Do it in the spreadsheet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Over here.
Where's the sensor?
behind the door, that's the problem with moving the door.
There's always something.
Are you gonna put that up on the screen again?
Oh, yeah. I thought I did. I can see it perfectly.
There it is.
All right, so that's
Bring
that
my ad
red
up.
line you see there.
Yeah,
I've confirmed this with both regional schools. Kim, our finance team, we're pretty confident saying that this number can go down 30,000.
The same deal, I can't see the number. What is
Yeah.
it?
30,000
30?
even.
Okay.
I'm writing it in mind.
So we can reduce the draft 1 budget by 156,000 we're recommending to you without any real impact to service.
We should- Great.
so any questions about this portion? Okay,
This is budget, yeah, it's a lot with these. Don't sometimes understand. it.
We're pretty certain that there isn't a student that's gonna wanna go VOTEC.
We do think there are students that want to go. We don't think they'll get in.
Yeah, we understand.
remember
that
there's
too, but
that
different
like 3 or
conversation.
4
problem
of them.
now. Sorry. Go ahead, Ryan. You want to explain?
Um,
Or-
the demand on the vocational school is so great that the vocational school does not believe that there's a wait list for people who are members and we're not even a member. So you'd have to go through the entire member wait list to get to one of our students. So unless it was a student who the state deemed had to go there, which is unlikely, we really think there's no chance next year. I do know that the school committee has mentioned it to you, to the FinCom and to me, that they'd like to have this conversation about getting our students there, but it will not happen in FY '24.
Okay. So it's pretty low risk.
They said extremely low risk.
Okay, so if we're all comfortable, then let's move on to the next portion, which is looking at the items that are proposed that are outside that guidance budget. The health insurance recommendation, so what we need to just be mindful of, I know we've all talked about this, but not in great detail, is that this is a 1% increase in the share the town would pay of health insurance. And the notion would be that we would be signaling that we are planning to continue to increase the town share at least over the next 5 years by 1%, and potentially it could be 10 years, but I think in our minds, we should be thinking if we want to go ahead with this, we're starting a path of moving in that direction. That'll
Well, I
obviously affect future years.
Contextually, Ryan, you're saying that most towns contribute between 60 and 65%.
I believe that's the median.
We're at 55, so this would be 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. And then we would take another look and decide if we want to keep going. But, you know, I mentioned it in a meeting a few weeks ago. It is sort of a social, in my opinion, it's sort of a social contract. I mean, if we embark on this, we shouldn't stop at like 56 or 7%. Signal to the employees that this is our path. So that means it's 15% in today year dollars. It's 15% per percent. So 15,000 per percent. So today is 15,000. Next year that becomes base and another 15,000, blah, blah, blah. So you're at 75. In some future year, in today dollars, you're at 75,000 extra cost. So
This is data, not persuasion, but in a conversation with an employee today, the contribution cost next year is projected to go up 7%. So it's a sizable chunk of any employee compensation,
Their employee share is likely to go up 7%,
the whole package, but what they're,
It would go down a little.
because
because of
we'd
this.
pick up one, but
But in the
nevertheless,
law-
there's going to be an increase. Yeah,
And we just
For
lost
employees.
another employee who's going to get probably
more compensation.
More compensation and better benefits.
Yeah, yeah. Any discussion about this? Are we all comfortable with this being, I'm setting aside how does this get paid for, right? But
Right.
are we
Do we
in
support
principle, do we support it?
Assuming we can.
Everybody good?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I
support it.
absolutely support it.
Great. Then the COLA at 3%. That's pretty
Do we
straightforward.
have any background more, I think 3% is a perfectly reasonable number, but I'm just wondering if we have any other background to support it.
Ryan sent out a,
Ryan sent a sheet.
Oh, did I miss
Did you see that? Yeah, showing,
When did you, was that today?
yesterday or the day
Yesterday.
before?
how did that go?
I think it was yesterday.
I will call it up. I got it right here.
okay,
I will caveat that this is not an agreed upon market basket of towns. It's just a snapshot.
maybe not necessarily comparable towns in the sense of demographics or size or,
Future conversation of something we should pick.
yeah, got it.
These are towns in what we call small town administrator associations, so towns that are close in size to us, very varying demographics and income levels. I took some averages down here on the bottom just to show, I didn't pull a 3% recommendation out of thin air. It seems to be
Mhm.
Yes.
about the average. What's not included here is some considerations like in Dalton. Dalton's at a 1.7, but they have a 2% step increase each year. So it's really a 3.75.
Yeah.
We are proposing to you a compensation plan that has a 1%. So you're really doing 4%.
Mm.
So just trying to show you real dollars, it's still pretty comparable.
Northfield and Worthington make us look pretty pathetic, huh?
5 million.
6%.
Look at the size
Northfield,
of their budget.
Yeah, well, but we don't know what the overall compensation packages are either, but
right,
the thing is, 3% is certainly not, the reason I wanted this up is
not
so the
unreasonable,
public.
right,
It's not out in left field.
right.
Certainly, we all are aware that there is quite a bit of inflation going on right now. Gas prices are coming down, but housing is going up. And,
Can you
If you look at the 30 to $40 million budget range, which is where we land, pretty consistent.
Could you just, don't save it, but just take up the high and the low?
oh, I see what you're saying.
6%. He wants the outliers.
Yeah.
1.75.
Yeah, he did it already.
Delete it and delete.
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Delete Worthington. You still have at least one of them. That's still pretty
It
Still
goes
pretty close
down.
to a point.
Yeah,
cool.
0.83. Went down a little.
Those sixes just throw it way up.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, there's.
Right, but I
there
mean,
was 60
I know.
there.
if we step back holistically, inflation has not calmed down that much, right? So.
Yeah.
I think what's fair, right? I mean, that's a kind of a question. What's fair for,
I think 3% is fair. The teachers are going to get, was it 2.5?
yeah, it's either that or
Yeah.
2.75. I can't remember
No,
which.
that's
Is it
next-
2.5?
No, they never got 2 point, I think it was 2.5
2.5 this year.
And- But the ones that are on steps, 4% steps.
Right.
So I think 3% for the rest of the town is,
And particularly if you couple it with the wage, the change in the wage and
Yes.
the grade.
yes,
Um,
but it's still not the same that it's still not 2.5 plus 4, which is 6.5.
correct. correct.
So I think
It's still lower than what the
Still.
school
yes.
teachers get, yeah. Are people comfortable with the COLA there for now? And we can discuss the wage proposal?
fine with me.
I mean, yes.
Okay. So, this is at 79,000. Do you want to just give us a quick summary, Ryan, of the things that would be changing?
Yes, so there's two things to consider here. One is, we've talked about this in executive session, so I'll talk about it generally. Changing the wage plan structure from a 30-year structure to a 15-year structure with one step increase each year tied to evaluations. So this would be 1% for every employee that meets expectations. They would move up step, a 1% increase in total compensation. The idea behind the 79,000 is to tie it to the HRS study and other parity considerations in town and move everybody onto the plan. So nobody would go down. Some people who are paid the way HRS in their study said they should be, would have very, very small increases to get on the scale. And then those that need a little parity adjustment would move greater on the scale. This primarily targets mid-level female employees based on the study.
Everybody understand the basic concepts? Yeah.
Definitely.
I'd like to, if I could just ask how all of these components fit in, like, so, Kate was just saying at the school, they get the step and then they get the increase. Here, how often do they get a step? Or how often would they get this 1% step?
So what I'm proposing would be a every year step. So every year they would get a step on July 1st. The current is a 3-year step. So 30-year scale with 10 steps. So they get one step every 3 years, which does confuse our applicants when they're coming here. Sure, we could do a better job explaining it to them, but they believe, because a lot of towns do regular step increases, they're usually pretty upset to find out it's 3-year. The difference between steps in this scale that we have now is 1.78%. So every 3 years, they
Now
would
they
get,
have 1.78 every 3 years, and with this, it's 1% every year.
yes. So the rationale behind this, from my opinion, is I do not believe we'll see many 30-year employees anymore. So there aren't many 30-year scales. I think a 5-year commitment from an employee in at least the next decade's market for municipal employees makes more sense. So in terms of retention, targeting that group that would be here for 5 to 10 years would be a cost savings compared to having to replace them with employees that stay here longer than 15. I mean, we'll keep people for sure, but I don't see it trending that way statewide or countrywide, really, if you want to get into ICMA studies.
So in effect, what this does is, not just this, but the package is that other than those people who are coming up on their 3-year, this is 1% more towards health insurance and a 4-year annual increase. I mean, a 4% annual increase.
The COLA plus the
That's a
1%.
package.
Yeah.
Yes.
For FY '24, yes.
Yeah.
And health insurance affects some, the wage adjustment affects some, the COLA affects everybody. So there's
In
very.
this case, we mean now it would affect everybody because it's every year. I mean, as long as somebody's been here a year, they would get the 1% based upon that.
So I should actually take that back. So the wage adjustments puts everyone on the scale. And then the COLA is applied to the scale, so they would get that, but the 1% step wouldn't kick in until FY '25.
Right, because they have to go through the year and be evaluated and,
So,
But nobody's
so why
gonna
is
go
it in this
down.
year's budget?
I'm sorry,
Why is it in this year's budget?
the scale?
Yeah, that,
the 1%.
So the 80,000 is to move everyone onto the scale. And then we would use the scale for a year and then they would get a 1% step.
So this figure does not include the 1%
No.
step.
Some
Okay,
people will get more than 1%
Like-
because they're going to be.
right.
on
Adjusted.
average, I'm not against this. I just want to make sure that I
No.
understand.
Please.
On average, then, that 80,000 is what percentage of somebody's salary that they would be getting this year?
It's a really wide range.
Okay,
And we did, it was a lot of numbers in a tiny spreadsheet. We did go over it. So it ranges from, $25 to several $1,000s, depending on the position.
okay.
I have one more question then. If there were, a bracket that got no adjustment, why shouldn't we give them the 1% along with the COLA this year? If they don't get
You don't get any
if they
increase
don't
from
get
the
any
change.
increase from the structural,
Cost.
And they're getting the COLA.
well, they'll get the
It-
COLA,
it's a-
but they don't get the step and then have to wait an extra, and then some.
Again,
people
remember,
will-
nobody's getting the step,
So it's not the most,
Understand nobody's getting a step, but some people are
getting an,
getting.
a
big
wage
raise,
increase.
A wage
Yeah.
increase.
right.
won't be the most
Just concerned about
popular.
morale.
It won't be the most popular in terms of morale, but
Yes.
if you're not being heavily adjusted on the scale, it's because market indicates that you were hired correctly.
Yeah, I understand that too. I guess what I'd like to know is how much would it cost were we to do that? Because if it's $3,000, it may not be worth risking the morale.
Mhm.
If it's $30,000, we have something to talk about. So I guess that's the question I'm asking.
I would ask Brian though, because he's kind of in charge of the personnel here, how do you think that would affect, like, can you think this makes sense and you manage that wage analysis? Like, keep proposing it as a potential challenge. How do you see? I'm asking the same thing. I'm asking the same thing. Do you think that that's an issue, or would you be in favor as the town administrator?
I think this is what we can afford and will pass.
What's the objective? The objective is fairness.
Is parity a clear and understandable wage scale that we can recruit and explain? And then,
An increase in how quickly you get.
then to meet the select board's goal of tying compensation to evaluation is also a key component here. And then, because there's a 1% step each year, then your COLA decision comes much cleaner. And the fifth, more technical reason for this is we can calculate, if you ask us what is the impact of COLA, if we make all these changes, we could give it to you in 10 minutes. Right now, it took us a couple weeks to figure it out.
I have a related question. So in the event that an employee is due for their 3-year increase sometime in FY '24, how would they be, what would happen to them?
So that's built into the budget recommendation that you have. It's only, I believe, a quarter of the employees is already in the budget. This
That
move
their
would move them.
increase for FY '24 based on their 3-year. Okay, all right.
The one thing that will cause some employee consternation is some of the moves to get people on the scale because of the difference in salary costs would move them from, say, a step 6 in our current scale to a step 1, but they'd be moving up grades. Or the difference in the grades is so different that it's more of a perception that I'm now a step 1 again, but it's really moving them onto step 1 of the new scale, which is our best attempt at parity, given all of the different hirings that have been done over the last 10 years or so. So there are people that are paid higher than they should be based off market. I'm not gonna say their names or anything, but we're not gonna move them down, right? So that getting closer to parity means, we can't do this, which is what we should do. We're doing kind of this.
The nice thing about going down to the first step again is starting over, so they're not gonna cap out, right?
Well, I mean, that's actually the good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, we'd hire everyone on the new scale without deviation. So if you were gonna be hired above step 1, you would be tied to step 6. So it would eventually, through attrition, create more parity. Because anybody who is, I hate using the term overpaid, but anyone who is outside of market, when that position opens, we would hire it at market.
Mhm.
So if we adopt this and we go forward.
Remember, I stamped already, so yeah,
Okay.
you're okay. Just
Okay, so if we, fast forward a year, we've adopted this. COLA aside. I got a little confused about when the 1% kicks in. What will that line 22 look like? Today's payroll. Same payroll, but we've already made this $79,000 adjustment, so people are set up. What does that look like next year?
1%.
Yeah, just 1% of payroll, or is
It's
there's no more adjustments, right? It's just.
it's not quite 1% of payroll because of unions. So on the non-union side, just napkin math, 30,000.
Okay, so so basically now it becomes like a 4% COLA. COLA plus 1%.
Correct. So all of your contract employees like myself, this doesn't apply to. All of your unions, this doesn't apply to. This step is for your non-unions who are typically the ones who get their pay last. Depending on how they were hired is what creates the lack of parity.
I see, so I was just trying to do some math and I think I was wrong, because if I'm looking at the COLA 3%, that total, that includes the contract people, because they're getting that same COLA, right, or does it
Yeah.
not? So I can't just take that number and divide it by 3 and say every percent, so therefore, I was just trying to say,
Yeah.
well, next year, obviously, everything would be higher. I was thinking next year it would be about $57,000 for that 1%, but that's not true. It would be less, right? Because of the contract people.
And you also have some floors. So the
Mhm.
police, for example, have a 2.25 floor. So even if you did a 0% COLA, you still contractually have to pay. And that's a big chunk of our employees.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to figure out that 1%.
That's-
It was per year.
That's why when people say, can you calculate the COLA, it's a little confusing. So it's almost 90,000 at 1% because you have to pay 2.25 to certain people. And then there's economies of scale as you go up. So once you hit 2.25, then you're at a truing, and then you get to 3, everybody goes up 0.75. They just lose everybody.
That 1% increase for the non-union people, it seems like it's somewhere a little bit south of 50,000 that will cost us next year.
50 or something. Lost track.
It's definitely less than 50. It's probably closer to 30.
I'm just thinking about the time we have here,
Yeah.
so if we're comfortable with this proposal, or if we're not, or let me take a sense of the group. Travis, do you have?
I have a couple more questions
yeah.
on it, but just to understand it, but if we need to move on, that's,
I think you need to ask. a question.
Ask your question.
79.
Ask your question.
okay, so I'm working off your hand gestures of raising everybody up to. And I understand it comes from our wage analysis that we did, that some people are underpaid. And so we're trying to, and one of the things that you said is you spent 3 weeks trying to put these numbers together, and by doing this, it's going to make it much more efficient. So you think that there'll be significant cost savings if we were to do this just in administrative time going forward? So we'll see some benefit from this?
Yeah, tough to calculate, but Kelly spends a lot of time trying to apply COLA. And also doing other things like payroll, which is the reason for the HR software. So those are two technology, like this clarity in the technology will decrease the need for, say, an extra finance clerk in order to cover for when this math is being done on spreadsheets. So it's just hard to quantify, but you would take the hours that we do this times, the town accountant's salary, my salary. And there is some savings here, but it's tough to explain that at
But
times.
it's really mostly retention. Fairness.
Oh,
Yeah.
Travis, now, not everybody gets a step every year. So some do and some don't. So you have to find out how many are this year, and then you can
See.
apply it to that. It's,
You have to remember.
It's
if
helpful. I
everybody
just
were
don't-
getting a 1% step, now
It
you
would
can say
be-
payroll plus 1,
Right,
plus 3.
and that's
you're
what we're
done.
trying to do.
Instead of
Right.
having to go through.
But do we
person by
have to do
person.
this again and again? Because, within 5 years, we bring in a bunch of new employees and then they're all, we do another salary study and find, well, they're kind of not in line, so we'll have to step it up at some point again to make everyone in parity.
It's like we did this about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years.
We
is-
being the town,
Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
absolutely-
yeah.
It's a big deal.
right?
It was a big deal.
And in fact,
I could give you,
In
we're
fact,
supposed to do it every 5 years or
Okay.
so, yeah.
I think actually you have to do at least a portion every 3 years and then a big one every,
We have.
which we have not done.
I can give you an anecdote. So when you look at our wage scale, it's built off 40 hours. So when people go on the website and they look at our wage scale, they see a certain cost. When you do the math, you calculate 35, which is our average employee, and what we offer, it's far less than they thought. So that initial offer to them, whether fair or not, whether that pay is appropriate or not, is different. So there's that hurdle that we have to overcome. So having clarity, just an hourly rate with a offer sheet that says 35 and articulating that has some value. Also, the salary numbers on those wages, there were some employees that were hired at the salary rate, which is a 40-hour calculation, not a 35. So those salaries are not aligned with the 35-hour wage employees, which caused this difference. It's a really long answer to, yes, you should always do a market analysis every 5 years because the market changes, but if you create some structure around your wage plan, it should be much less of an impact. It should be,
Part of this solves that 35-40 issue.
it does, if you stuck to this discipline wise, which is hard to say, because we'd all have to be in the room and agree to it for the next 10 years, this would help solve it. There'll be one-offs that we have to adjust, but that's a lot different than say, let's change our entire wage scale and throw 80,000 to make it more fair.
Okay,
You
thank you.
comfortable?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm fine until we start talking about how we're gonna pay for it.
right, okay.
Yeah.
In principle, right. The, let me drop down to the, I think what's easy is the, bottom one, the COHS van driver, 10-7. Anybody have a question or concern about, in principle, supporting that request?
That's multiple drivers, right? That's multiple part-time drivers, not a van driver.
It's really hours of driving.
right?
Yeah,
And they've been using that number of
Yes.
hours and so this is
Yeah.
not based on,
it's based on need, data that's already been, yeah. what they've already determined is the need. Okay, and then the town clerk stipend, Ryan, maybe you want to quickly explain how that is absorbed in the wage change,
Really?
how you think about that as part of the change in the wage scale?
The drivers,
No, the,
I'm sorry.
town clerk stipend.
So I hate talking about individuals, but the town clerk is one of the most underpaid positions in our town. So this is a department head who's elected and just candidly female, which is two strikes against you in terms of parity statewide. This position got a big increase, but if you compare responsibilities and department heads, they should be at this level and the pay is here. So a lot of town clerks, because they're elected and because they're underpaid around the state, are advocating for stipends and tying it to the extra hours they have to spend salary doing election covers and the other items. So the stipends are a way, and the town clerk associations are asking for these stipends to try and create some more wage parity. I think we should just pay our town clerk in line with responsibilities and other department heads. Especially thinking forward to, if you are considering making an appointed position, then it should be aligned with department heads and not something you worry about because it's an election line. But this will receive a lot of attention because it is voted by itself.
It'll have to be voted by itself, even if we say it's great, it'll be its own one.
Right. And
So long answer, but I think that it's better to pay close to market than to do a stipend to try and overcome some cost.
And have you already, and I take it you've already included that in the 79,000 that's here under the wage proposal?
So this.
But not the
Okay.
total amount that you think it should be. So that's why there's still the 2,500 hanging out there as a
It
stipend.
goes away.
Well,
We go away at
stipend
fast.
would go
I think
away.
it should go away. If you're
Oh.
gonna do it, put it in, roll it into her salary generally.
Okay, that's, okay, well, that answers that, okay, now,
Okay.
now that becomes clear, so that really, the 2,500 shouldn't even be
But
there.
I mean, just,
That's an elected official
Right,
who
right.
in her budget asked.
it might not pass, right?
Right,
Whereas the stipend, we could just do, right?
Yes.
So I mean, there is a
Doesn't
risk,
pass,
there
we
is a
could
risk.
probably Fine $2,500, so you give her.
I was just
Yeah,
gonna
right.
say, we could,
We'll
yeah,
figure that out.
yeah,
I agree. with you.
Okay.
yeah, right, because the stipend we can do without any other oversight. That's something within the board's prerogative, right? Or is
Yes,
that, yeah,
assuming we pass the HR bylaw. I'm sorry to always make it so.
oh, yeah,
complicated.
okay. No, okay,
What is
gotcha.
what is the purpose of the stipend? I mean, so, I mean, normally a stipend is for something. So what would we say if it's,
For extra hours related to early voting.
got it, okay.
Okay, but assume if the wage analysis were to pass, this clerk stipend would come off. Okay, so that leaves us with sustainability. And that's one we discussed quite a bit Tuesday night. I think if you didn't see it, there was an email this afternoon from Debbie Bentley, the chair of the ESC, outlining some reasons why they support this position. And then, of course, we had that draft job description to look at. Again, I know we have to discuss how we would pay for it, right? But if in principle, in terms of, do we support this in terms of a service that we think would be valuable to provide to the town? Are we supportive of this, assuming we can figure out a reasonable way to pay for it?
Close the door.
That's what I
I
say too.
have a question before you answer. Brian. Ryan, does this 65,000 include benefits? It does not. About how much more would that be? 30%?
Anywhere from 0 to 18,000.
But how do we, I mean, that begs a larger question, which has been bandied about for many years, Kerry Kissinger being a strong proponent. How do we budget incremental people without the benefit? You kind of look at the salary, we don't, to Nathan's point, it's come up with teachers, it's come up with many times. Like, shouldn't we,
New positions
new
that
positions?
we don't typically include the cost of the benefits, yeah.
You don't know what the cost of the benefits will
Well,
be.
you can, but you know, on average,
Yeah,
I mean, on average, you'll be correct, right? If you know that 70% of people take benefits or whatever, then they have a thing. I mean, you can make an educated guess. It's typically not zero.
So because of that, we build in, and nobody likes this word when you're budgeting, but a cushion into the health insurance line to account for coming on and off.
Mhm.
There is a point where you run out of that.
Hmm.
Which
Well,
is, we could absorb a 1% increase in that line item this year, but we're increasing it because we know this position might also carry.
Yeah, well, it's two different questions. So there's the how to pay for it question, which you've answered. But there's the how to value it question, which you don't answer, like a $65,000 position could really be, 85, maybe not that much, but it could be,
Another 15.
70,000, 75. I mean, it could, and so there's no really correct answer, but I think I agree, I think with where Nathan's going, that it's useful as a metric to think about these as fully loaded positions when we think about the cost benefit.
Yeah, at the same time, we've just gone through, some hiring
Yeah.
where we didn't look at that.
Well, we didn't, but
Right,
it
so
doesn't
we're-
mean we shouldn't have.
No, but maybe we need to sort of have that be,
But there's gonna be new hires.
What other hiring did we go through? Did we-
well, just did the
Aubrey and
ETA, we just did the
Julie.
town planner. And,
Right, but we're gonna have.
Oh, I thought you meant tonight.
No, 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 no.
Oh, I missed. No, but Barney, I don't wanna type tonight.
you know that nap.
Right.
We've got, DPW vacancy, we've got a COA,
Right.
there's vacancies coming up and we should start thinking
So maybe we need to think about this for the
in the
budget
future.
process,
Yeah.
right, for next year.
Yeah.
Well, even,
Of course, some of those vacancies were using up benefits, some might not be.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
and so
for tonight, I think we're.
for tonight, I think,
Tonight we're-
okay, and I wouldn't take the time tonight to. have-
No, no.
We have more important things to talk
Okay.
about.
So are we okay leaving this here for now and let's get into the discussion about how we would pay for this? Because we still have a whole nother section about the
Yeah.
warrant items and the capital
Right.
expenses we
Yeah.
hope to try to get to tonight. If people are, if folks are okay with that, let's
I'm fine.
move to the sort of discussion about available funds. And do you want to
Sure.
help us with this part?
I mean, Ryan can lead. I think to finish the page he's on, if we were to accept all the cuts and the requests, it leaves us with
This is
182,000 thereabouts, right?
183.
183.
In other words, let's remind ourselves, in the prior page that we started with, we made a sort of commitment that we would cap the tax bill.
Yes.
And that bill was only what, in some circles would be called a level service budget, right? No adds. And no cuts, but no adds. Here we have a couple puts and calls, and then we get down to 183, and now we talk about, and again, we have not yet touched warrant articles or CapEx. We're just talking about the OpEx.
Operating, yeah.
And again, to calibrate all of us, generally speaking, we are reluctant to apply ARPA or CPA or free cash to recurring expenses. Generally speaking, that's the philosophy, right? You use those things for one times. So we're at this gap, and now you want to take over, Ryan, and
Bridge
your- and how to bridge it?
Yeah.
Take the 2,500 out, and that fixes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, and I think rightfully so, self-imposing this limit on costs, right? Because you could increase the taxes if you want to.
We always could.
To go from this. So if you were going to add these additional expenses above guidance, then making these prudent cuts, I think is fairly uncontroversial, leaves you with about 180,000. And I would say even a little deeper, probably 200,000 in order to get to that 500 number, because even the
Yeah.
guidance budget was 518.
Yeah.
So a way that you mentioned the other day on, what was that, Monday, all the way on Monday, was to use free cash. I also have never recommended using free cash for an operating budget. However, in a year where half of your quote unquote new revenue is going towards what is a spike in regional school costs would be the time that you would use that if you wanted to add these additional expenses. You could not fund one of them, which would certainly reduce the expenses. You also have the ambulance reserve fund. So this is used sometimes to supplement the budget. It's easily justified because it covers ambulance costs in the fire department. But what it doesn't do is create you a stable of funds to pay for an ambulance, which is the best way to do it.
I wouldn't want,
And they're expensive.
It's the same as free cash.
everything is at the end of the day, but
And then you have free cash and ARPA to use. So knowing that you couldn't quote unquote afford some of these expenses is why I made the recommendation to use ARPA funds on a 2-year grant trial for the sustainability position, because it would take the pressure off the budget if you were going to fund that position. That's no different than using free cash or ambulance reserves to also fund these positions. And then the third piece is we have relatively conservative estimates here for revenue. So I did send around, and I can show it here. The biggest area where you have some room is in local receipts and hopefully state aid. If state aid comes in, then you have some low hanging fruit reductions. So it's a fairly complicated spreadsheet, but what it's showing you is you estimate local receipts this time of year. So you say in FY24, we're going to collect X from our local receipts, or the items that people come in and pay for. Think dog licenses, building permits, motor vehicle excise tax. You want to be conservative with these estimates, because if you don't hit your number, you have to cover that somehow, whether it's one-time funds like free cash or increasing the budget and going to town meetings. So you do want to be conservative. A conservative number is about 90% of actual is where you would want to estimate, and then build your budget off of that.
Excuse me, Ryan, is it possible? Oh, great. I was gonna ask you to get that green column.
So what we've recommended in this budget for you is 81% of actual of the 5-year average. So these things can, if everybody buys a bunch of nice cars and pays their excise tax, then that can go up. If people decide to keep their cars for a year, that motor vehicle excise can go down. Again, I can't emphasize enough, you don't want to level it right at where your expenses were last year because of the variability of these costs.
Right.
But you do have some room here. Let's say you wanted to take a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 swing at these estimates, then you could say afford more on the expense side. What this will do is put some pressure on bringing in revenue, and also reduce your free cash generation, which has big impacts on the next discussion, which is one-time costs like capital. So in combination, the $200,000 could be reduced by relaxing revenue assumptions, using one-time funds, or not funding pieces.
And so the revenue assumption, what the 81.5% is is that a relaxation of what we might have done in the past?
It is not. It is what is building this budget currently. So
Okay,
if you wanted to relax it, you could add, say, 25,000 to motor vehicle excise tax in your estimates, specifically target that, and then that would allow you some comfort in adding that expense cost. This isn't entered until November, which is why it sounds less specific, like more of an art than a science.
So let me ask a question, Ryan. One of the things that I'd forgotten that was like an aha moment that you just said was the spike in our assessment for CCHS. What was that 1-year spike that how much was that?
So in an average year, 10-year average, it's the $300,000 assessment. This year was 630.
About $300,000 that and how many years before that drops back down?
If everything holds, which is never does,
Yeah.
next year you're looking at about a $380,000 assessment, and the year following it goes back up again to 600,000.
we're in a few years of unfavorable demographics.
And then it's supposed to level off, supposed to. assuming that the school holds costs.
Okay, so it's 600, so it's a. I'm sorry, one more time.
646.
646, and that's just what the assessment, or is that the increase?
That's the increase to assessment.
No, it's the total.
No, it's definitely not the total.
No, I mean, the 600,000.
It's our total increase in assessment.
I mean, our
Yeah.
assessment is $5 million or something.
No, right. But you're saying it's
It's the
your
increase.
average has been 300,000, now it's went up.
When you say level off, is it leveling off at the 600,000 number? or-
No, back down to 3 to 4 range. Yeah, for a couple of years, but projecting out more than 5 years is a.
No, I mean, we
We could-
projected, no, it's not that hard. I mean, I projected 10 years ago and come right in because the kids, you know, the kids. There's a
Well,
few
yeah,
other.
but
But you
always
get, you
cohort
can have
numbers and
people move into
years.
the community
How
that,
many-
the,
Say what
the
you want.
averages, the averages.
I'll show you the data.
Okay.
You compare my predictive
There's a
model
really
with
big
the-
variable with the
it's
new
in the
middle
list.
school.
Okay.
because you know the kids.
So that new middle school in Concord is a really strong variable that is unknown.
Right.
So In
Right.
theory, that would
Increase their
attract more
population.
students from private school,
Yeah,
which would increase Concord's share, decrease ours, but that's.
Yeah.
It's gotta finish, it's gotta pass,
Speculation.
finish, and then actually
Right.
drop.
Yeah.
Got it. And so, but that variable is not built into the dropping down to, back down to 4. Okay, so we have this year that's a peak. Next year, we're back to like 200,000 less. 250,000 250,000 less, and then we're back up again. And then we're hoping it's gonna drop back down.
If you give me 1 second, I can actually put it on the screen for you.
yeah, the Concord middle schools were really.
And I'm
terrible.
just, anything we use one-time funds for now is
Yeah.
just going to cause a problem next year.
Oh, yeah, no, there's no question.
Right? It's just gonna make it so much worse next year. But if it actually is a peak, and that we're just offsetting that with one-time funds, then I feel a whole lot more comfortable about it.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
I just totally don't feel comfortable about using one-time funds for anything operational, because,
Right, don't get
Next-
addicted. Don't get,
next-
it's crap.
next year, we're in a lot of trouble. Because our base is starting at that higher number.
I'm not worried about next year. I think we're worried about
It's the
26.
Yeah,
26 is
25.
gonna be a challenge.
So this is the
Right.
projected assessment, just to visualize what we're talking about.
So you see,
I'm sorry, I'm
into
2
the
years a year off.
left, we were the beneficiaries of favorable adjustments. You may remember.
19, yeah.
Quite a few. We got a reduction. Oops.
FY 22 is great if I.
Coming, it's coming.
I was off by a year, so in estimate. This is a bubble year, then decent year. A reduction year,
Wow,
and then a really
okay,
big.
and then
and
up
then
again.
again,
Yeah,
So if we're good at our jobs and smart, we would put stabilization funds aside to try and level this off. Assuming everything holds and there's no change.
years.
So I mean, that would argue for, like, what we were talking about last time was using stabilization funds to even fund other things. I would think we wouldn't want to do that, but maybe use it just to fund it this year, fund this increase, and then hold off so that we can do it again.
Yeah.
But, yeah, but I mean, it is kind of. It's fundamentally not different, right? Because you would replenish stabilization fund with free cash to get it back to the level. it needs.
Yeah, but it's
It
all,
may look
But
bad.
that's-
it's all money.
It's
all
gotta
money
come from
collected,
somewhere.
Yes,
Right.
yes, we've already collected it. We're not gonna have to raise tax. And I want to
No,
tell
no,
you
no,
also.
you would. I mean, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. If we applied free cash to this bump or some percentage
Mhm.
versus we took it out of stabilization and then put free cash into stabilization,
No.
it's the same.
Talking about putting the free cash and stabilization on the 2 low years, so that when we get to. the
Oh,
bump, we're
okay.
taking it
I
out
see.
there.
I see.
And I just want to say, by the way, that we knew about this bump coming in 24, and the teachers are taking only 2% that year. For their COLA.
The CPS.
that's why,
PS teachers, yes.
The CC.
Yeah,
Right,
but I'm just
teachers are-
telling you that at least, we don't, at least
That's right.
we know that we've
Well,
already done some
We've done some.
we know what to
something
expect here,
here.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I would,
This is also the year
I think they deserve some credit for.
they do. They
where
do.
you're now discussing buildings. that's where that would start to kick in.
Right, yeah.
So you have some debt capacity, but you also have this operating budget pressure. So that's 27 is gonna be all about how do you fit in capital costs.
Because it's gonna be a terrible year.
Those of you who are.
So
Yeah, but
we were
then-
running this year.
Having some more debt
Think about-
capacity, by the time we hit 27.
When do you roll out?
our debt should have gone down too for the buildings that we've already built. So we will have some capacity in there.
So again, I'm conscious of the time here. We've got Ryan for another half an hour, but we were in theory ending by 7:30 and doing the
Okay.
HR
Yes.
work with Aubrey before then. So, where are we on spending either
And I felt better
Free
about it before this.
cash or stabilization funds to cover the $200,000 roughly, in items beyond guidance?
183, is that what
Yeah,
you're
but
talking about?
Ryan was saying probably should
With the,
talk about it as 200,000.
Just so I,
the-
a little primer for me. Free cash is money that has been collected but was not spent, right? So it's,
Or projected and received,
or we.
under projected and received.
Right. But it's taxes that we collected that we didn't spend. Stabilization fund is free cash that we've moved into a fund.
Yes, stabilization is a protected savings account. Free cash is either unexpended or realized funds.
So free cash, we can, working with FinCom, we can spend. Stabilization fund, we have to go to town meeting.
Both you have to go to town meeting.
Okay, both we have to go to town. meeting.
Stabilization, you need a much higher threshold. For the purposes of this discussion, given how much free cash you have, to use stabilization would be inappropriate. So it should be free cash.
Okay.
You want to talk us through just very briefly the free cash situation? Ryan?
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's me.
I think it was
Just
like
the-
1.2 million of excess is over 12%, is that right?
1.4.
So again, this is art and best practice. So Department of Revenue, bonding agencies, they like to see 10% reserve. That's just sort of a magical number in the municipal finance world. So this is the current situation in Carlisle. Stabilization funds are 1.2, free cash is 4.2, for a total of 5.4 million in what we would call reserve funds. So I do believe it's prudent when you're in this financial situation in protecting a bond rate to be even more conservative. So a 12% is a pretty conservative reserve number. So if you took 12% of the projected operating budget, then this doesn't include additional requests, so you'd have to do all the maneuvering we're discussing, that's keeping 4 million and change in reserve. So if you subtract out what we have from what we should have, it leaves you 1.4 million in capacity. The current proposed capital plan, based off discussions with the finance committee and all the department submissions, and capital plan still whittling down, but it's 884. You have 259,000 in warrant article considerations, plus you discussed something for the Public Safety Facilities Committee, which would increase that warrant article number. So if you did all that spending, you'd still have 263,000 above your reserve target. And that number would be 4.3 million in cash and stabilization to roll over to next year. Now, all of the cuts and other things suggested will decrease the ability to generate free cash, taxing people for money not used. So next year, when you consider looking at anywhere from $4 to $1 million in expenses, you won't have as much free cash either. Trying to give you good answers, but also good information. So everything you do impacts something.
But I think, just maybe simplify and go to Nathan's point. If we assume that 12% is our target over time, we have 1.4 million left, but there is plenty that we can spend the 1.4 million on in the capital needs over the next few years. There's no shortage of people who will raise their hand to help us spend that money. So I think for just the little moment we're in, We have to think about whether we want to use any of that to close this OpEx gap before we get to capital. So
Any of this 1.4 million or what's
apply
left.
any of the 1.4 million to this 200,000 gap that
Right,
on the operating side, and then clear the deck and then talk about capital. So, philosophically, I'm pretty much aligned with Nathan, like use zero of it. But it's a gap. And so we either use zero of it or we either use some of it or we have to trade down some of the ads that Ryan listed. I think that's what
For me, there's still a whole lot to talk about in the capital plan and the warrant.
we're going to get to that. Yeah.
But I guess I would just think about it a little bit differently than it is here. We're looking at, okay, do we do the sustainability role? Do we do the COLA increases and all of that? And how do we pay for that? And maybe we use stabilization or the
Free
free
cash.
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 Yeah.
It's okay if I misspeak a little.
Well,
I think, if we use the free cash for that, I would prefer to say, okay, let's decide if we're gonna do that and put it into the operating budget and say, how much of this temporary increase should we pay for out of free cash?
The CCRSD.
Yeah. Because that's the temporary thing.
Right, right, but.
That's the thing that will
Right.
hopefully. if
Yeah,
it
I mean, it's
doesn't
kind of
come back
saying
down.
the same thing from a different angle,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's still,
still kind of a, yeah.
how much of the free cash pad should we apply to the operating budget? However we
Yes,
just,
but for me, it's how much should we offset this
this
spike?
one spike.
Right.
Because it is kind of a one-time thing. We know that it's gonna be one time for 2 years. But separated by a year.
Yeah,
And I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with saying, we have this spike, we shouldn't increase taxes to pay for that
Right.
spike, because that tax increase remains there.
right.
And then we're gonna spend it next year, and then we're gonna have to increase the next year because we have
Because
another
we
spike
fit
again,
into
and it's just this
Cycle.
this cycle. So anything that's an anomaly, we should be, that's to me what free cash is for. So we're not raising the tax base because of an anomaly.
right,
And, but you said at the beginning, you'd put the, these items that we've been discussing, the ones that are outside sort of the guidance budget into the operating budget.
Yeah, in my head, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, but then we still have to pay for the cost of those. In addition to then using free cash to pay for the spike.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is, obviously, we still have the budget problem. But right now, if we look at the operating budget, that was the number we're gonna try to get to 500.
Yeah,
In there is this spike
right.
for our
I
assessment.
got you. Okay, I got
And
you.
so in my head, I'm taking
Yes.
that out.
Got you.
It's offset by all those other things that we're saying that,
Yeah.
maybe we're saying we want to do.
instead of taking these things out, you're taking the spike out. Got it.
Right.
That makes
Right.
sense.
That-
And I
that
think that
does make
also,
a bit of sense. And
It's just a logical thing. It's not,
is.
hey, Ryan,
No.
go rerun the numbers. It's just, the way I'm thinking about it.
and a way to
and-
present it that I think also makes more sense
Yeah.
to the general public.
We don't want to raise taxes for this spike because the tax rate doesn't go away.
right.
Right.
And I think again.
So how much
upward
free
is
cash would you
better.
apply? All 200? I mean, then
I
it
think
gets
it would
back to,
depend upon what our final number is just for operating.
well, I think let's go
and-
back to
and
that.
How much we have to apply in order. to
Well,
keep it at
it's
500.
right there. So
Well,
let's,
we know what it is.
was
It was the
it's 200 if you
200,000.
take all the ads in. And the question is,
Yeah.
do you take all the ads in?
Well,
We've sort of decided in principle, we
It's almost
support the ads.
400,000.
The question is, do we support them enough that we want to take 200,000 in free cash?
Well, I mean,
The spike, 400,000 though. It was like 200,000 last
Right.
year and 600,000. So the spike
Is
is
300,000,
it's about,
wasn't it?
it's about 300.
So in this year's assessment, 250,000 is related to new spending at the high school and 380 is the enrollment shift.
Okay, so $250,000 is the spike.
No,
382
380,
is.
380.
Was the difference though, but so that's why I'm saying that's the spike.
I-
That's what we're covering.
I
with
know, but you
cash.
don't need to,
And,
yes, okay.
okay, so if you took that 250 out and you put our 125 in, the extra things that we're talking about, the sustainability, the wage structure and stuff, you're almost at a flat. That's it.
I mean, I think,
They're
That-
almost the same amount.
You're almost the
I
same.
think that that's I don't think I would do it that way. I think I would put everything in
Right.
and then say, okay,
Yeah.
what number, in order to get back to our 500, how much money do we need? And
Right.
can we justify that because of the spike? But only cover that, because
And you,
if we throw
you go back to your
300,000 in,
deficit
we may,
analysis.
our actual
But-
budget may be over,
Yeah, but we're not, we're throwing less than that in.
all the way at the right.
It's like 128 we're talking about,
Right,
right?
but-
Okay,
And you did, Ryan, you sort of held back on the final number for use
So
of,
it's 1 to 23.
um, local receipts. So
well, no, we talked about 25,000
25,000.
in the, right, changing, in the motor vehicle excise.
I
number.
I think that's like micro doing it. I
Yeah,
would
but
just
every
leave it
little
at the
bit helps.
80.
It's gonna generate free cash, more free cash if you don't
Right,
do it,
fair enough.
less
Okay.
free cash if you
So if
do.
we're 200,000, so here's the thing then, if we're 200,000, do you recommend using 200,000 of free cash? And if the answer is no, then something off that list has to go up. Of the 339.
Our spike is far over 200,000 though, right?
Right, but then you got another spike coming down to, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no reason to use more than you need to use. You only need to use 200,000. You're well within the spike, yes. But
Yeah.
you wouldn't use all of it if you don't have to.
Yeah,
So a way to overcome free cash usage is if you were going to spend 1.2 million because of new capacity next year, or new revenue, you would hold yourself to 1 million to cover that gap. You would carry the 200,000, so you're not using it again next year. But you have to be disciplined and do that over multiple years.
I think I follow you.
Yeah, I didn't
What
either.
you're saying.
So if you're expecting everything to cost 1.2 million next year, you would hold yourself to 1 million in new spend in order to overcome the lack of revenue you'll have from using free cash.
How much new spend we have this year? I haven't-
With this addition, it's 1.5.
a lot. Ugh. I'm just more like, I don't know, I look at it a different,
Well,
well,
here's a suggestion at this point in the evening. Are we, I mean, we could ask FinCom to help accomplish this
yes.
by, if we're saying to them, here's what we would like to do in the operating budget in
Yeah.
terms of these expenses we've outlined beyond the guidance budget.
Yep.
And we are comfortable using free cash. We want you to then figure out with our finance department and Ryan, how you would do that. But obviously, we don't also need to look at the warrant articles and the capital
So let's,
spending.
yeah, so let's.
So
look at
I'm
those that come up.
I'm thinking if we could jump ahead to that, we've only got,
Well, we have as much time as we need. He
Okay.
just goes away.
right, Aubrey, are you okay beyond 7:30 if we don't get to the HR thing? Okay.
Should you go to warrants
I would-
first, Ryan?
good. I'd just also like to know which number we're really talking about. Are we talking about a 339 number or the 183?
No, 183.
Okay, so that is what the difference is. And it's close to the difference in the spike. Correct?
Oh, it's less, way less.
It's less than the
It's- it's-
spike.
It's half. the-
Less than the spike.
The spike's
It's way less, but
300,000.
it's-
It's actually 180, 700.
Yes, right. when They're all important, $2,500, but.
Yeah,
right,
okay.
So it's half the spike.
So I guess to me,
Yep.
that, I feel way more comfortable to say, I think we need and not only want, but we need
All those
these,
things.
all these things.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
You need all of the deficit things,
The ad thing.
the ad things.
I think
Well,
I
I
would
would-
need to see the impact of the warrant article.
Yeah,
Right,
okay.
so let's go to that.
Okay.
Let's move.
But we have a proposal on the table for the operating budget and we'll come back to it. So let's look, first of all, do you want to look at long-term?
I think we should look at warrants.
At warrants
It's immediate.
first, okay.
Yeah.
Which,
Where are we?
if you're
Warrant
looking at the
article
packet
request.
from Monday, it's,
I think we're all on the spreadsheet that Ryan.
Yeah.
We're using
And
it.
have the warrant article.
oh, yeah,
It's on the
okay, good.
tabs.
Yeah.
I'm
So
doing
walk us through the
old-fashioned
latest
way.
and greatest on that. Some of these,
Yeah.
some of these are going
Well,
away, right,
well,
Ryan?
Yeah, can I, right, I'll just, you want me to speak to the conservation stuff?
So
Ryan?
the reason we're speaking to this is conservation put in placeholders that they weren't sure they would be able to get done before fall town meeting or next annual town meeting. So we asked them to clarify because of the need on all of the free cash.
And so the first item is not, they're not ready to ask for that at
The
this,
50K?
the 50,000 for
Oh.
the NOI. And
Okay.
the, right, so then and the 300,000, which is the bog restoration is, they've got a CPA application in
Okay.
for that one.
Put CPA in that column.
Oh, I saw
I
that
think it's,
somewhere.
oh, there you go. Okay. He's
Yeah.
put it out to the
Okay.
right.
Okay. So.
And the
this one is-
library renovation is also a
Right.
CPA, application. And the Greeno Conservation Land invasive plant, the sense is that that could be covered by the, if you go further down, the Greeno barn, down at the
Well,
bottom.
She said
there,
she wouldn't be
yeah.
ready anyway, right? Didn't she tell you
On
that?
the,
8,000.
well, no, it was the 50,000, she said, but the 8,000 could be absorbed, I think, in the Greeno barn funds listed, the 150,000 that's down there under the town administrator.
Is
Sorry,
that 150 based upon, I think we were gonna reach out and get some estimates. Is that
Yeah.
based upon estimates or is that?
It's higher than the highest estimate, which was 138,000.
Okay, and that's why they're saying they can pay the 8,000 out of that.
Yes, but there is an important note here. So there's a lot of recommendation on the Greeno barn to make it as sustainable as possible, the demolition of it.
Yeah.
So three things in particular have been discussed and more if you allow it. Saving the wood that's in the main barn, which is some really nice wood. The cupola is of interest to our historical society. And the slate roof is also an item that most people would consider sustainable. The issue is when it's a lot easier to just crash it down and throw it away. So depending on how sustainable you want to make this, and it will be your call, it could increase the cost. So I was not sure if the select board was going to entertain that, so I have not reached out and asked. But my guess would be adding anywhere from 25 to 50,000 for the delicate removal of some of the sustainable.
Do we know if those slates match the ones on the library roof? I'm serious.
No, that's a good point.
Be great.
Even if it doesn't match, put it on the back.
Right.
Right.
So I did-
Show we're
I did talk to
environmentally
council.
conscious.
We would have quality requirements in the RFP for demolition, saying you have to put these
Yeah.
aside. We could put them at the DPW and have people first come, first serve. You could also, anything that's in excess of 10,000, you could dispose of by selling it off or giving it to, say, the Historical Society wants the cupola. If that's valued at over 10,000, you'd have to give it to them.
Okay.
Which I don't think it would be, but the slate and the wood would definitely.
Does that actually have to go through some kind of a contract thing, or we have to declare it surplus and?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if we put it at the DPW and we let people come and take it,
It'll be gone.
We just declare it stolen.
Collect insurance.
I wish I'd done this 3 years ago when I rebuilt my barn. I would have come and gotten it
Yeah.
myself. So
But anyway,
Lot
let's
work.
go, yeah, that's the, just to back up
Okay.
a second, so the accounting, the first accounting, the 1580 is minor, that's very small, and then there's the 50,000 for the chart of accounts and update, and which I think we
Yes.
talked about a little bit
Did you
before, it's
sharpen
very
the
much
pencil?
needed.
so the more you sharpen this, the more gets put on Kim and Kelly, which they're capable of doing. So the thing that's most variable is the consulting hours to refine this. So if you wanted to take money off it, 5 to 10,000 would be fine. Knowing that the more you take off, the more you're putting on the team. 5,000 for sure is fine.
just leave it at 50.
That's two different bosses saying.
So let's, if
So
you're
go ahead and do
saying,
that.
if you're saying we could take 5 off, let's take 5 off, let's
Yeah.
put it at 45,000. And then, and so that changes the bottom line.
But I do want to put money, I personally would advocate putting money into the Greeno barn for sustainable. reading.
Yes, I
think
would
we
too.
Really.
Those 3
have to
items,
start
I think.
walking the-
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think we want to go beyond that this time around, but the 3 items you mentioned, I think are worth it.
So should we put 200,000 or
Oh, funds to remove the Greeno barn?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you need to add money.
175.
25 and 50, so.
you-
Well, you know what, yeah,
But then we'd be taking out 5,000, adding
but,
20,
50,000.
yes, we're-
But I mean.
May,
okay,
may I
there-
suggest adding 50 and then I know you want to do it, so we can go get a number
yeah,
that might come down
Before-
before town meeting.
before town meeting.
That would be worst case. Well,
I agree. So
best
you're-
case thing, worst case money.
right, so
Yeah,
You're
it's another
250, your warrant articles are. now
100K
250.
then, or 250?
Yeah, well, 200,
200.
200 there
Okay,
makes
Just
2,
580? Oh, no.
254 or 580, general.
I had
fund.
254 and you had 246.
I took out the 8,000.
Oh, you did? Okay. now-
Yeah,
Change it to 200, we can sneak that in there as
All
well.
right, all right, fair.
He gets 246, 580. Where did we do?
Oh, you put it in the
The one-
200.
Yeah,
Right.
well, you took the 8,000
Okay,
out.
all right, so
got-
we're good, I think that's.
Okay,
He got 246, 580.
so out of the general fund, it'd be 246,000.
It's 550, 546, and we got he got 946 and we got 954.
Yeah, how did you? do
How did that
Did you
happen?
take the 8,000 out?
Oh,
Less
no,
by 50.
I didn't take the
Yeah,
8,000
that's
out.
not gonna move the
First one, the
Yeah.
Cranberry Bog NOIs.
That's out. But we left the 400.
Oh, I see, just gets,
250,000.
So 246,
That would be
right.
200.
Okay,
Okay.
so 250, we'll call it 250.
How come I?
54.
So we've committed 200 out of the free cash, 200 and 250, so 450. Leaves us 950.
Can we borrow the 200?
Why would you want to
How
do
would we
that
do that?
and pay more money, interest on it?
Have to spend the free cash.
Oh,
I don't,
think
Be
that
ready
would
for
be-
that spike in 3 years.
So that would turn into operating costs. So you'd have to go back.
I think
free Cash to
Yeah.
at the moment, I don't think that's a great practice for these minor.
When you're sitting on.
You buy
money,
$1 million
Right.
fire trucks, you.
Any interest. Sure.
Okay, so we should probably go to.
not to stir the hornet's nest, but you've also discussed adding very
For
a study.
For the,
Oh, yes.
gotta
yes,
add
so we
police
have to
and
put that in
fire.
Here,
right,
yes.
We agreed on that or?
No, we're gonna.
We haven't discussed
right,
it.
we've got to, right, but what's sort of the proposal on the table from the
Right.
task force was, yeah, 20 for the fire department, 20 for the police department, including the parking need. And the question is whether we want to also add something over and above that to the study to have a larger conceptual study done that would inform how you did the police and fire, even if you didn't do anything beyond that for a couple of years. And here's one thought about this, which is, we could, because the study of the fire department is fairly clear, kind of what that study needs to do is to figure out how we would have an annex. That could be something that we could suggest is covered by ARPA, and you get that study going right away. And then we ask town meeting to fund the police study. I personally would want it to be at a larger level, because I think we don't want to box ourselves in to not being able to do something in terms of a larger concept for how you deal with parking and town hall needs. But that's obviously a discussion, but so you could have ARPA fund the study for the fire department and get that going right away. And then you take to town hall meeting some level of study that's either just the police station and its parking needs or a larger amount for a,
I think that's a good.
broader
I think that's
study.
a good idea.
I guess my question is, why wouldn't you take both of them to ARPA?
You could.
you
With
could
ARPA lady, you tell us.
I'm concerned about
delay or,
delay and momentum and cadence. And
Uh-huh.
I-
About the number of studies we are doing.
you're concerned? Is
Yeah,
that what you
this,
said?
this is the third study of the police department, right? At some point, we just have to take action. And I think we've studied this town out. I really worry that the study won't pass. I really worry that the study won't pass if we're saying that it's a total town center thing.
Right.
I also don't understand, I don't think I don't understand what that, I don't have a concept as to what that whole town center parking thing is. And so I wouldn't be supportive of putting that to town meeting, because I don't think we're gonna know enough by then, you know? I don't want to just do something like this, you know, off the cuff.
You
Right.
support ARPA use? Would you?
I
use
would
of ARPA?
support ARPA use for two $20,000 studies.
And you wouldn't touch parking? You wouldn't deal with parking?
I don't know what that means. You know, I don't know what the town, I don't know what that, I don't know what it means,
But
right? We haven't really,
The people sat, the experts who studied it, sat in front of us 2 days ago and said, you can't design the police station in a vacuum without considering parking. It was pretty clear to me that.
No, but I think the
that's a
difference
completely
is,
different thing, Dave.
right, it's it's a smaller piece to make sure you deal with the need for parking for the police station. That's a smaller piece of the parking question, which is if you look at the town, this
was-
area of the town center in a broader level, looking at how you might change this part of the parking out here in front of town hall, and also try to look at, you meet the needs of the COA. That's the, that's
yet
a,
another.
no, but I mean, remember, it was sort of option, one option is, well, they were recommending, I think, very clearly, the study of the fire and study of police, both at the $20,000 level, but that the police had to include addressing their need for parking. And so the discussion is,
They gave areas for that.
right,
And that's what they voted on and that's what they presented. What came up that night, I think. a
Also,
lot-
whether one
something
of their-
wasn't on the committee. What came up that night was, well, maybe we should do a bigger thing.
well, no, that was the third item in their report.
Yeah.
If you
that we should
recall.
look at in the
Yeah,
future,
they were
we should
recommending,
consider
but the,
something like
the
that.
task
But
force,
if we're talking about creating a town campus, or if we're talking about addressing parking through and pathways, which is what the master plan talks about,
right,
that's a big project, and I don't think we just do that off the cuff. I'm not against doing it, but I don't think we just say, well, let's throw $100,000 in to do another study, because we don't know what we're asking them to study.
Well, I would advocate narrowing this. I think there's a middle ground, okay? I think that the fire station is relatively self-contained. And the Stu Roberts has been through the building, and to your point and everybody else's, when he gave a quotation, it should be pretty firm. Like, he should be able to do whatever he needs to do in that parcel for the amount he quoted, because he's very familiar. He did, right? So I'm comfortable, whether we bifurcate them or put them together. To me, that one's self-contained. I heard loud and clear that, even with the what was it called? The
TBA.
TBA study, they didn't really fully address the parking. They just identified that parking would be needed. We know we have a wetlands issue. It needs to be, that is not, just because they said 20 doesn't mean it's 20, right? Because if you consider whether you're gonna have a walkway over wetlands or you're gonna have a parking lot, that's a big deal. So no matter what we do with police, I think to say, well, no parking is later, I think is silly. So I think the instructions to whoever does the police thing has to be consider parking, and in particular, consider how we might get from police to this here. And by the way, so that part is, maybe you disagree with everything, some pieces of what I said, but by and large, that's consistent with the first two recommendations. The third piece to me is take this parking lot, which we know is inadequate, which we know is laid out silly with S curves and things. We know it's part dirt, it's the hill that we don't use, and include that in a way that provides adequate parking for the police with its expanded footprint, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, if you ever come here in Mahjong Day, lots of seniors have come in, whether we build a COA thing or not, seniors are coming in here, and the regular traffic. We just need more of it. And I would rather
I
do
agree.
something for COA, but I'm okay stopping there
mhm.
and just including that in the scope of the police, but not at 20,000, because I don't think 20,000 is enough.
Yeah. I agree.
And I would love to include a COA thing, but I'm okay with Nathan's point, not layering on.
Not
Just,
having
but
too
I
much.
don't think you can ignore the complexity of the parking and the importance of,
And the
you don't have to call it town center, but in fact, we need to draw these parcels together in a way that makes traffic sense. That's my opinion.
So.
Travis,
I-
you've been kind of quiet.
Yeah,
on
I
this. What
have.
do you-
I tend to agree with Nathan. I think we need to get this moving. We've studied this, at least I've watched, over the years, studying this. They came up with a plan. They've spent a lot of time. I think we need to get moving. I don't think we need
But what
to.
is getting moving? in that?
I think the fire department fund that study, and I
Yeah.
think the police department, but we,
Sure, but at what level
Yeah,
of
but-
dollars?
At
Lem-
their
lem-
level of their number one and two.
at their number 1 and 2. I think we need to move. We have the police department plans, I think, for
We
every.
do, but they,
But some of those are out
but
of
they
date,
were done
saying, but-
without. Yeah, they were done with other, different, criteria, let's put it that way. They were done being told, don't do anything about any parking. Don't, and so they are constrained. They're not as good a plan as they could be because they couldn't expand into where they are currently parking because they had no other place to put cars. So parking was never a consideration. And so I think the study that's being proposed is to look at those old plans in light of, can they be improved if we, deal with the parking?
What do you think as a board of our timing to accomplish these things? As far as, if we go to town meeting, we get this study done, the study says, this is what you need to do for the police department, assuming the fire department kind of stands on its own and that
Yep.
solves itself.
Right.
We go with the annex, we build that for the fire department and that moves forward. But for the police department, what happens then? So we then would need to go to the next year to get a set of building plans. That's gonna take a whole nother,
You're gonna have to,
No.
no matter what you do, that you always have. that.
I
Yeah.
know, I'm just trying to think through how to move this forward as quickly
I
as
think now's the
possible.
Time,
Because
you have the year, your study window is this year, whether you do exactly what they asked, or even you only do the fire station, it's a year. So you might as
Just
well
do the police
put into
station
the
as a
year
one-time.
all the things you need to say, I'm gonna deal with parking someday later, is just, to me, makes no sense.
Well, I think that we talked about, they're gonna deal with parking because they have to deal with it on site as it
It's how
stands
you
alone,
scope it.
but not on a
Yes.
Yeah,
broad
okay.
sense.
Yeah, we understand.
They were
this-
saying a little bit behind the Green Cemetery, not Green,
this
Yeah,
town
Town
cemetery.
Cemetery.
Yeah.
And scoping going over the wetlands. That was what was in their scope. I would be supportive of spending $20,000 there and $20,000 in the fire department out of ARPA. If we want to expand it to something bigger, I'm supportive of $20,000 out of ARPA and going to town meeting on the other
rest.
one, because I think that we're gonna get, I could be wrong, but I think we're gonna get a lot of input around the use of the land and that, I think that people are going to care about that.
What happens behind the police department?
Yes, I think people will care about that. And
Yeah.
so they should have a say before we spend money on,
I'm okay with that. Fine.
on a study. I think it would need to go to town meeting, and for me anyway, and it would need to be, I think, much more
More
plainly scoped
Developed, yeah,
than what we're talking about
Right.
right now.
right. And
Because I think we risk not getting any study money, and that's just, we're going into that saying, we may not get anything. And we can't then turn around and spend ARPA. If the town has said no.
Right, no, I agree.
Well, then they live with a smaller police station.
But I thought there's some fundamental deficiencies in the police station that we can't continue to live with. We will not get accredited
That's
if
correct.
they don't get, the jail redone and
We live in a democracy.
that's true. I'm not trying, I know.
No,
We're trying to figure out though what makes sense. And this is, again, comes to priorities. And is this where we're gonna prioritize our resources and our efforts, or are we gonna do it somewhere else? And
What's this?
It's a lot of money to do that parking. That central, the bigger.
well, I'm thinking of the police station. You said well, it'll just have to slip and we live in a democracy.
I think it's incumbent on us, if we agree on a plan of action, to do our best to sell it to the public.
Yes.
If we fail at that, we fail it, but I just,
so let's get concrete here. If it sounds like am I right in thinking that we're comfortable with ARPA being used to fund the study of the fire
I think we can
department,
Consider that one done.
right?
Yes.
Okay,
And
So-
as a representative of ARPA, of the ARPA committee, if you go to the ARPA, you don't, in my opinion, don't even have to go to the ARPA committee, you might.
We just say as a select
You-
board,
the
we would
select
like
board,
to
we would
fund
like to
this
fund this.
using ARPA funds.
We don't
and-
want to bypass.
No,
No, but I mean,
but the
it is
thing is,
ultimately our.
the ARPA committee is very cognizant of the fact that it is your approval that counts, not ARPA committees. So if it's coming from you, we will certainly rubber
Yeah.
stamp it, I'm sure.
And one
send it
advantage,
back to you,
right, and one advantage to using ARPA funds, if it turns out there's a little more money needed, right, to do the actual fire station study for some reason or
Yes,
other,
you can
because of
put
the septic or the whatever, right, you can come back to ARPA.
Right.
And similarly, if it's costs less, the money gets returned to ARPA, the remainder.
Yeah.
So then we have the police station to deal with. And,
But I think we. did
we,
both Studies, I thought I heard you say.
well,
that
no,
you-
Nathan was making a case that we really should take the second one to the
Town.
town meeting.
I was saying
That-
if we're going beyond what
No,
they
Be,
propose.
but beyond, but both of them would go to ARPA, both
Oh,
of them.
wait, so the figuring out parking for the police station that might involve going across the wetlands behind the cemetery and coming up toward town hall along those wetlands.
We have to go to town meeting for it. Might-
Well,
Oh,
but I'm
that-
saying that
no.
study for parking for the police station, they're looking at the land behind the cemetery and the wetlands behind it.
Mhm.
And those wetlands are just on the other side of the little hill,
Mhm.
at the end of our parking lot. So if they conclude that instead of building a parking area on the wetlands, instead it'd be smarter to build a pathway up to the town hall parking area and expand that to provide parking for the police officers, right? Right, that is a potential conclusion of the study instead of doing some big thing on the wetlands. Right? So I don't know, I don't think we want to be about the business of saying the
Do this,
study
do
is
this, right.
only going to look at
I agree. with
this, the study's gonna look at
Yeah.
the best way to solve the parking problem for the police station.
Yeah,
And
so
that may or,
Just going off
yeah.
what I read of what they presented.
Yeah.
What they presented for the $20,000 study was, for parking, was that it would look behind the town cemetery. And it would look to do something like what they have done, at the Rite Aid, not a Rite Aid anymore, is it the Walgreens, in Concord? Where, they
Yeah.
went over a little bit. Their
and they've
third-
already-
their Third
yeah.
thing that was not included in the 20,000 was
to look at the large.
evaluating coming
concept.
back and around. I think
Right.
as soon as we're evaluating coming back and around, we're talking about a significant impact on the Conant land, and I think that town citizens should have a say as to whether or not we're gonna spend money studying that.
Yeah, okay.
That's just,
Yeah, I
Because
I
it's no
think
longer
they're a little-
standalone, I agree with that. It's-
Yeah, it's just,
Uh.
if you, I don't know if you've had a chance to go out there and look
Yeah,
at
you know,
what we're
for-
talking about. I don't think we want to, limit the study that looks at the best way or options for how you address the need for parking for the police station. And it may be that it's not feasible for either environmental reasons or cost reasons to do what you're describing by Walgreens, by the Walgreens. What I was told that someone on the task force or somebody looked at was that was hugely expensive and they had to get special permitting for it.
it could be, I'm not
Yeah, but I'm not-
proposing it all, I'm
Right.
just going based upon what they propose.
Right, but
Right, but I'm just trying to say, I think we want the 20,000. It'd be interesting to go back to the task force and ask, how'd you come up with
Right, no,
20,000?
I was about to say,
Because,
they pulled it out of thin air.
right,
They told,
right.
I agree
Because
with their
originally they were telling
statement,
us,
but they did not do due diligence on, they have due diligence on the Stu Roberts study. Because
but
he
that
gave
was
them a
12.5.
quotation.
That was the quote he gave
So-
them, 12.5.
Right, so make,
So they've made it 20,000.
Because they had
to
a
allow
reserve.
for the septic.
and then they said double it for this, without any consideration
Right.
of what Barney's talking
All
about.
right, so why don't we do this, just because it's getting late, why
Right.
don't we say, we've already said fire department's a done deal, right? Why don't we say, okay, we're gonna go to town meeting, And we need you to scope out better what this study would do. And I would also include on that exactly what are the parking requirements, right?
Mhm.
Because they went, right, they said it's from 4 to 20. We can't do that, right? What exactly are, and it's not in the best case. I mean, if it's during transition,
It needs to be shift change, right? It has to be the maximum.
I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know.
Well,
that-
let's us not decide that.
No, but I'm,
Okay.
what I'm saying is they need to come up with the right.
So could I offer maybe a different one? If we were to authorize 50K from ARPA for the whole thing, and if Stu comes in for cheap, great. And if this thing, they do need to specify, or, as you said,
Do
they
the scope. I mean, they
scope
need to
the thing
explain
to,
the specific
to not be locked in one solution.
Right.
I'm
We-
reading it again. Can I just read the
Yeah.
Sure.
thing for the police? The purpose of the feasibility study will be to determine what can be done if the constraint is relaxed, because what the TBA one, we had those, we said you can't expand the building.
Right.
So the question is, if you could get rid of those
Right.
cars in there, find a place, how would that change the design? And if the study determines that the cost is reasonable, the next steps would be to seek funding from the town to develop complete design documents and put the project out. for
Which
bids.
you always would do it. But
Right.
what needs to be added that's silent is if you relax the envelope, you need to come up with parking. And I
Exactly,
agree with
and that's why
Nathan.
we keep
You
on.
can't say
talking
4
about-
to 20, you gotta figure out what
Right.
that is.
Okay,
but
but
I-
that would be the architects that are doing this feasibility study.
I know,
There-
I know, but what I'm saying is, I don't think 20 is enough. But I don't think it has to be 100.
Right.
If we just took ARPA, I agree that eventually the town has to approve. They would, if they do the study right, they'd say, well, here are a couple options of parking.
Right,
If it means incursion into Conant, of course we have to go to the town and make sure that, whatever it is, we have, if we
Yes.
do a platform over the wetlands, we have to go to the town. I mean,
Right.
it's gonna always go to the town. But to move the ball along, and I agree with you, but not be short-sighted.
I agree, I
Put
totally
in
agree.
50 or 60,
That we request from ARPA.
that we request from ARPA and we move the study and we're
Yes.
doing our best job.
But
And
if-
then next year we deal with the
Okay,
results.
and
Did you just make an emotion?
I didn't make a
I
motion.
thought I heard 50,000, that you moved fifty
I'm not sure
thousand.
what, so that's 50,000 for the police.
For the combined,
combined,
Combined.
for
And
both
they-
of them combined.
and maybe Stu Roberts is a little less than 20 because he came in at 12 and, they should do what,
And it,
a lot of what
it
they had to
also-
do is already designed. I
and
agree with that.
it allows us to go back to ARPA if we needed more. For
Yes,
some reason or
right.
other, right? This police study gets more involved, you have to do, whatever.
Right.
How do people feel about, well, shall we put a motion on the floor? Are we ready to consider that?
I want to hear from
We- if we're gonna do a
Travis and
motion,
Nathan?
We do it as two different things.
Sure. So what would you propose?
I would propose we do a motion on what we've already decided, which is the fire department,
Okay,
and we separate that from the police department.
The only reason I combine them is because there's a higher likelihood that the fire station will come in under and the police station will come in over.
But it's all ARPA, right? So if it comes in under,
Yeah.
that goes back to ARPA and then we,
Fine.
so what we do is
It gets it
20 for
done.
fire and we could say 30 for police. But, okay,
Yeah.
so you want to put a motion on the floor for the fire
yeah.
department study?
I propose that, we request from the ARPA committee.
Put it-
We require the
Whatever.
ARPA committee to request from us, $20,000 for the fire department study as presented to us and in our board of selectmen meeting on February 13th.
You have a second?
Second.
All right, any more discussion on that one? All right, we can do this a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, it carries unanimously. The second motion would be about using ARPA funds for the study of the police station. David, do you want to make a
Sure.
motion?
I move that we recommend the ARPA committee to fund a study for the police station and related parking needs, including more than one option. More than one parking option
At the amount of,
in the amount of $30,000.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion on that one.
Yeah, just, so what this is just saying to the Public Safety Committee, we're giving you $10,000 more because we think that's needed. We need to know much better about what the parking requirements are, and we want you to use this study money to come up with multiple options on how we can address parking.
Yes.
And the other
Well,
needs of the police
yes.
station. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
maybe it's not
Again,
multiple
maybe
options.
I have
maybe
too
it's-
much history, but for instance, they could not put the gun cleaning in the police department because we couldn't spread the footprint. Okay, so it had to go outside somewhere. Once you put it outside, that lists parking spaces. So the idea is exactly this. If we were able to put this inside, we would, and lose those parking spaces, how do we?
Right.
What, does it help us or does it not help us?
That's what
And
they're
if
gonna
it,
say.
you know, I think it's exactly right, but I think we want to give them a little extra money, so, because if it really, really helps, now we need to find what to do with those cars.
I don't think 30 is enough, but
Well, that's okay, we can go back if, and we would wait until we got the, you know, we would get an 80% plan before we went back, right? So we would
Yeah,
would
you
know
would
what
know
the
where
pro-
you were.
we would know
Right.
where we were, so.
Right,
um,
Yeah,
no.
but the motion that was made was $30,000, study the police department
and the parking. needs.
and the parking needs, and come back with multiple parking options.
More than one.
That's, yeah, more than one option.
Yes,
let's say more
That's
than
what
one.
the
option.
motion was.
yes.
Yes, that is the option.
Okay,
That's
any
my second.
more discussion?
Nope.
Everybody ready? All right, so all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Excellent.
All right, the motion carries unanimously. All right. Well done.
Yes, and
It took us a while,
it
but
did,
we
but
did it.
it's really nice
Um,
that we've had a chance to have these discussions.
Yeah.
I really feel like
Um,
sometimes we never
Now,
get the
have
time.
have we concluded then, we haven't literally
go to
good at
capital.
long-term caps.
So let's review the bidding. We have 1.4 million in free cash above our floor, our self-imposed floor, right?
Yeah.
We kind of decided to use 200,000 to take care of our operating expense needs based on the fact that we had a $400,000 spike.
Right,
and we're kind of using half of that, and
Right.
we have a bunch of things we have to do. We are now saying, round it up to 250, around 250,000 in warrant articles that would be funded through free cash, not through CPA.
Wait, but didn't the 250 end up including some money for studies?
No, the studies
No,
is all.
They weren't in there.
Goes
Okay,
with-
no, I know
Studies-
we just said that, but I thought maybe
Yeah,
it
no.
was
Oh,
in
it
that
wasn't.
number from before.
54,580.
Okay,
It's
Okay.
246 because he took the 8K.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. I
right.
So
thought you
let's
said
just call it
250.
250 for the purpose of right
Okay.
now. So we have 200 and 250, that's 450 out of 1.4 million. We have 950K
is-
left.
It's also out.
Now we should turn to
so if you look at the
capital
That's
plan.
her.
capital plan, which we don't have him here to
What is
I-
put up.
Okay.
I can share the screen.
Okay,
Oh,
that'd be helpful,
wanna just
Aubrey,
look at-
thanks.
The long-term capital, you know, that
Yes,
other
it's
one.
The green and blue one.
Yeah,
Well,
Uh,
Aubrey will show.
okay, that one.
all right,
okay.
so here we are,
So
yeah.
Aubrey, can you
So
lock the columns? I mean, yeah, so.
the
big-
dates above, yeah. The years above, right?
No,
Well, that's,
You go to view.
yeah, well, yeah. that's
Covered by
the
Zoom.
warrant.
Okay.
might not freeze that one. Sure, that would help too. I don't know if it'll freeze this one, but
You can unfreeze
Oh,
everything and
freeze up,
refreeze.
Yeah, that's okay.
this is the top one. That's the.
Okay, what I would do is
Okay.
unfreeze, I unfreeze the pane, just go to unfreeze. And go to, I would go to column,
You just
C,
Close it by hitting the little,
C4. Just
Yeah.
go to column, and
it's like a,
put your
there
cursor
you
right there.
go.
And now go freeze panes, go to freeze panes and freeze the panes. No, you don't need, you're fine. Okay.
Actually, I know what I'll do. I'm just gonna.
If you
I'm
could,
just gonna do the.
can you raise it up? Can you raise that little guy up, bar that says talking Carlisle?
There.
All right, this has been gone over somewhat, right? And and some of it's been spread out into other years
Right,
from what we saw before.
Yeah.
Well,
So we're looking at FY '24.
right.
right? That's
Yeah.
the first blue column.
Right,
And
that's what we're talking about.
the,
this
right,
budget.
everything from the school is pretty definite, right?
ARPA, the elevator,
Yeah.
I'm told.
Oh,
is
right,
ARPA.
right.
I don't know. Kate, have
Yes,
you
yep.
been approached on that?
We haven't, but I can tell you that we would certainly be very receptive to it.
So let's keep
Um,
going. You,
If you scroll down
Well, then, okay.
a little bit so we can see the rest of 24,
well, you have to go.
or do you want to,
long.
I would do them one at a time, Barney, because,
oh, do CPS first as a group, you mean?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so you have
all right.
145, 40,500, which would go to ARPA, and I think it's in, if you shrank that just a teensy bit, you could get all the,
okay, right, ARPA target.
ARPA,
Okay.
okay? And then there's 10,000 for the
Lighting,
lighting, high priority for oh, that's the outdoor lighting.
that
That's the
really
one
is
That's the
critical.
one we curse at all the time.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And frankly, if they came to ARPA for it, we'd have no problem, but it's such small money. I don't know why it's not even in just.
Well,
small
that
cap-
was the
Well,
conversation.
Ryan
whether
believes
it's been
we should instruct the school to put it back.
Covered in their own
operating.
operating budget.
Absolutely. I mean,
Right, so fair enough. Okay. So that's cool. All right.
okay, I
Um,
agree. 10,000 for the server room again. I kind of feel they should be covering that in their operating. But,
a server room for the
unless
air
that's-
conditioning?
well, I'm not sure. Is that
It's
the,
air conditioning to keep the server room at constant temperature.
So that,
is that our servers there too?
no, we're in the old server room. It's so it'd be, we need to be clear as to which one. I.
Yes.
It says
Why-
Spalding. I don't know if that helps.
Holdings at the school.
So the
It's a new
Spalding
one.
is an old building, right?
No,
No.
That's the new one.
Why
Building.
do we need new AC in the new building?
There's a shitty AC, excuse me.
Well, this
Not very
says,
well.
what's a server room?
Well, that's where the computer is,
where all
that,
the servers are.
for,
Oh,
I
and
mean,
so,
it says
some-
mission critical. That we're relying on school committee.
right,
you know what? Again, those small money things, I wish they would take care of themselves rather than nickeling and diming
And
us.
certainly instruct them to do that.
42K is for,
security cameras.
Which they believe they need.
which they do,
I presume there were.
They've studied it for a while. They've.
Well, there's been a
done
lot
peer
of debate
review.
about privacy and this and that. So they have
They
external.
don't have
security
any
cameras.
now.
These are for
Nathan,
internal.
except Getting into the building. Yeah.
Have you been-
Yeah, no, they discussed all this and we told the former chief wanted them everywhere and I think that was, they didn't feel comfortable putting them in every classroom, but I
Right,
think
but
they
the
need them
hall-
more in hallways
Right,
and in
right, so you
other
said-
areas so they can see if there's an event of
But
it.
just to be clear, they
Wow.
presently have cameras on the outside of the building, so they can see who's coming in.
Okay,
You know, if you
fine.
mentioned, this is about in the hallway
Right.
cameras, which
Okay.
they believe they need. Right. That's sort of their job.
okay, fine, just leave it in, and that could maybe be free cash. I don't know, free cash, or what does it say on the thing?
This is mission critical.
Just mission critical. What do you think,
All right, and then
Nathan?
It's like, I'm looking at the bottom line here.
I think.
Okay, 42K, yeah, that's 42, and then 40,000 for the walk-in boxes should be inspected and upgraded.
fridge and freezer RTUs.
They're
Bridge,
not holding temperature
I see, this is for food.
for food. You kind of got it.
Okay, fine, fine. But we don't have a, who's paying it on that one,
Not
okay.
yet.
40K for,
This is the
HVAC?
wastewater treatment.
HVAC.
The MUA needs to be.
oh, yes, yes.
I think they have to do that.
Yeah, that's health, safety
that
and
be-
welfare, really. Again, yes, mission critical.
And is that HVAC? I thought we were talking about using ARPA funds for that kind of thing.
Well, we were using it for, air quality, not, but this is an HVAC for the water treatment plant.
Uh-huh.
I'm surprised it needs HVAC for that, but okay, or maybe some things need to stay cool.
Well, it's the MUA stands for
Jumping ahead.
something.
Yeah, well, we're just trying to walk through it.
I'm just jumping ahead because we said that was mandatory. So we pay to maintain a plow truck at the school and multiple trucks?
Well, that's a
DPW.
question. That's a question if we.
Well, right now, they're saying they
need to
don't
know about it.
want to be they want to be able to plow
when they want.
when they need to plow rather than trying to wait until the DPW can plow. I mean, that could be
Actually-
something we push and say we want to have our DPW cover that.
Yeah.
But it's never been that way before.
Well, we can, but we're now, a unified town, right?
Yeah, well, we're trying to unify, and this would be a good place to start.
So maybe
I'm okay pushing back.
I think we say no to that.
Yeah.
the plow
Yeah,
truck,
just say no. Okay,
yeah, share services with DPW.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, 50K is a lot of money.
yeah.
It's not, we,
And then we have the used, oh, okay, now we're getting to the DPW.
all right.
So
So what did we end up endorsing in this list then?
on the school
Bucket
side,
tr-
Ryan said that DPW, if they had to drop something, they would drop the bucket truck.
They've already dropped it once.
Well, they had two number one
Yeah,
priorities
right.
and two number
The
two
sand.
priorities.
yeah, you can see
So
them.
the sand and the
Sand.
sand and the body, whatever it's called.
Stand body and
And the truck. is-
dump truck went
Actually,
together.
it's got the
Dump truck
dump
is gonna
trunks is
be-
priority, dump trucks at priority one,
Right, dump truck and the
Two of
sand
them.
body go together.
Yes, yeah.
but there are two dump trucks.
Well,
Oh,
that's
I see,
another
one
year.
is for
That's
a
another
later year,
Then
gotcha.
he would take the roadside mower and the lift thing and
Bucket
do it a
lift
different
truck.
bucket lift a different.
Different.
Now- Seeing that we no longer have a superintendent, do you think there would be any changes in services or the way we do business?
Yeah, there might be.
And should then I see, we need the sand, the dump.
I think you
truck and
gotta-
the Sand body,
You gotta do
but
that.
I'm wondering if we do let the roadside mower and the bucket truck slip one year.
I agree. I agree.
What is chapter 90 funds? What are they going to be funding this in this fiscal year?
I mean, they,
In the
That's-
past, they have done things like trucks and.
Right.
Yes, and they can do plow trucks.
Yeah.
Right? But they can't
we
do
have
other
an
trucks. They
estimate?
can't
We
do
don't
it
have
would be
a-
in here.
a
pickups, but they can do
information.
plows.
did he do chapter 90? He
Yeah.
didn't put chapter 90.
When we
I
bought
think
the.
so.
I don't see a chapter 90,
tractor
a
Estimate
good
in
question.
here,
That
yeah.
state fund.
Oh,
what is it?
It's really stupid. Yeah, that's right.
so put a
Okay.
question mark,
Question mark for chapter
chapter
90
90 on the sand body truck. For the dump.
or wherever.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna get rid of the lift truck and.
And
the-
So there is
Oof,
another
Yeah,
column for funding source recommendations.
Ah.
So it does show the MFC,
oh, this is.
Oh, some of them are already funded?
yeah.
Oh, are they
Yeah.
funded? What is that?
Yeah, it
really
was funded through last year's budget, remember?
sorry,
They-
which?
They approved at a town meeting.
mean? Right, but we haven't
But I'm
spent the
going to
whole.
do
We
some-
haven't spent the money. and
It's
it'll go back.
free cash.
Wait, what's that, Aubrey?
I'm just gonna hide the last few years just so I can show all the. columns.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very good.
So there we go. So now. it
Oh,
shows-
I see, they're already.
Why are we
sugge-
discussing them again if they've already been funded?
Well, but we haven't spent the money, so it's still if we,
wait a second.
But it went to town meeting
I-
for these specific items.
Oh, Wait.
Oh,
excuse
some
me.
of this
But
is
how
from
could
those,
MFC
not
fund a
23.
truck. That makes no sense to me.
oh, the bucket truck, the lift truck,
Yeah,
right. It
MFC
says
doesn't
funded
fund trucks.
in 2022.
No, that's wrong.
Yeah. I go ask them, because this is important. I didn't.
Yeah, that's not funded in MFC.
Well,
That was
let's see.
funded maybe,
And,
like,
and it also says, for
thing-
instance, the roadside mower was funded in this current fiscal year, 2023. So some of these, the money's already been appropriated,
Yeah. It's my understanding.
and the bucket and the sand body was already done
I'm looking. for
in
2020,
2022. Huh. A lot of this looks like the money's already been appropriated.
You want to look further up just to make sure that it's still. Okay, no, those still makes.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
basically their entire list for this, for FY
so for
'24.
2023. For 20.
It's all virtual, it's hybrid. So he's on,
probably in his office.
yeah,
So for 2023, I believe all the articles were funded. And
Yes.
we funded a cruiser, an APHIS machine, $10,000 worth of firearms, a
Mhm.
trailer, and 2 dump trucks.
Yes, but that, not MFC, so that was ATM, what I would say. Instead of MFC, it should say ATM.
Oh, funded at all town meeting.
Yes,
So I don't
Not-
see a mower up there,
you don't, okay.
um,
Let me see, what did the mower
oh, that
say?
was for 2023. Let me look at the town warrant
Dump
for
truck.
2021. Town meeting warrant 2021.
Yeah.
We don't always put the warrants in the same order. Hold on. Long-term
Bye,
capital
Bob.
requirements,
Yeah. Okay, what do you?
we did, a roll-off truck, a cruiser, water filtration system for the school, and well and sewer pump for the school.
Okay, so hang on, so let's see if any of those.
Well, the
Here,
Cruiser, basically, they're asking for one a year. If you drop down to the police department, one of the things that I
Yeah.
think, they've got 2 in there for this year. I think we just knocked that down to 1.
one,
Oh, yeah.
Under FY 24, they have 120,000. Basically, every third year, for some reason or other, they've been
Yeah.
asking for 2.
okay, so,
What's the green
So-
column and the blue column?
That was
So-
FY 23, what's already been,
are you,
said that their column view is not,
Yes.
anything in blue is in play,
yeah,
so.
So-
column Q.
All right, good to know.
but
Alright.
did you say that we got the cherry picker in 22?
Nope.
No,
It's in green,
but-
we did it.
so not even an ATM?
Nope.
So, okay, so we shouldn't be looking at Q,
no,
All right, good to know.
okay. All right,
So we're back to, I think the suggestion, Kate, you had, I like, is move the mower and the bucket truck to the right.
right, well, they're not priority 1,
Right,
right.
exactly.
yeah. So it's
And as you say,
95K.
it may be that,
And by the way, when we buy the
Anybody have-
mower, I would like us to be looking at
An
an electric
electric.
one.
yeah,
What about goats?
Sheep and goats.
Didn't we hire goats one
We
year?
did for
Yeah.
12 years, sheep for 12
for a
years.
couple of
Yeah,
years.
what a roadside mower is an attachment that connects onto the back of a tractor.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not sure you're gonna get an electric one of those.
Oh, I see. Oh, it's, okay. Yeah.
It's that thing that goes over the
Yeah,
guardrail.
okay.
Right.
Right.
And clears.
But if you want to go
Yeah,
for a sustainable tractor.
Concord had one, though. I think Concord has an electric roadside mower.
One of the 95, yeah, not next to zero. you put
But
it-
anyway, we're proposing, you've got that up there, right? The roadside mower and the,
And,
the
So could you put the
bucket
amount
lift
one
truck.
column over as well?
Yeah, that's what you should do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
so sand body stays in. Dump truck and sand body stay in, and then mower and cherry.
in the lift truck,
the
bucket
buck- Yeah. I
go
call it
into
cherry
the
Picker. X
25, yeah.
goes into that. For some reason it leaves it
Okay.
white. I don't know.
We,
Oh, yeah.
right,
covered.
so of the 180 and
I-
32 for the
White on mine,
DPW.
too.
Okay, let's keep going
All right.
down.
So, okay, so now that's the DPW. Next thing for this year, replacement hose, not a big problem. And I thought he said actually, I thought he said he got, some
Well, we gotta
grants
hope-
for that.
Oh,
But anyway, 15K is no big deal. I think,
cruiser, so
agree.
this one,
It's an important investment, right?
yeah, if I,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
arguing with it, yeah.
Okay.
I think the
So-
cruiser should be 1.
I think
Right.
we change, yeah, FY 24 and FY 27 to 60,000. One cruiser per year.
Brian did when he
There's
presented.
something
to
about
us
the
this fall.
cycle.
So,
where they're-
But I
Aubrey,
don't
make-
know-
make a
I-
note on it. Just
yeah.
make a note in the column.
we-
I'm not sure doing it.
Oh,
the
yeah, hose.
Fire hose.
Yeah, but
Those-
that
I
was
think
this
what
year,
this
we
is
did
a question mark.
this
With
year
the grant-
with one.
Grant funded,
Okay.
Yeah.
currently grant funded or something.
Okay, Aubrey, did you get
Right.
got the 120 on the cruiser on line 38 to 60?
To say,
Oh, you want to change it to 60? Make
Yeah.
it-
Yeah, make it 60 and, right.
I had them,
and then just put a note.
Oh, you did it already.
Cruiser.
Yeah.
I had-
because I knew.
You knew.
One cruiser, yeah,
Fire
down
Already did.
one cruiser, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, up to,
There we
blah,
go.
blah, 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 IT. upgrades.
Firearms, I assume we'd have to leave and then,
Well, that's
flat-
way further, that's several years away.
no, oh, I see, you're right, I was.
Yeah, we
looking
did that this
green.
year. We just
right.
got those firearms.
So then we're at town hall, the IT upgrades.
Yeah, we definitely need some IT upgrades. and-
Ryan thought that the 50 was heavy. Robbie, what's your,
It depends on what it's including, right, Nathan?
Yeah, I don't think 50 is heavy.
okay, so you like,
All right,
Okay.
so that is the end of FY
I
'24.
don't know
that
that we
comes to
made the, have we made the CPS
6,635.
adjustments? I don't know that Aubrey made the. Well, please, Aubrey, to the top.
Oh, yeah.
sorry,
let's see.
comes to
You're
six-
right.
We didn't actually make some of those adjustments.
The other
So,
one was the cameras we were talking
well,
about.
the
What was
140 goes to zero if it's ARPA, right?
Oh, I see. We should take
Yeah.
those off. Yeah,
You should note, yeah, just put zero for now, just. so
Yeah,
it's-
he'll have the other version, so.
Right,
And then,
zero.
yeah, put
And
zero.
zero for that,
Zero.
He's never gonna leave a meeting again.
yeah, right.
get rid of
The
everything.
security
And the
cameras we
server
leave,
room
and
AC, we
the-
said no to.
yeah, and then the fridge and freezer though we leave, right?
We said we'll do the fridge and
And
freezer
the
cameras.
WWTP
Plow.
plow
The-
truck,
Yeah.
Okay, so then we got plow.
Move those.
Right, we didn't move
But the
server. I'm
plow
not
truck-
sure.
The plow truck. was
I wanna-
eliminated.
I'm not sure
Before-
you can remove the server
I
AC.
think I want to know more about what the problem is before we.
We're obviously having a problem.
on which part?
On the server room AC.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
you
don't want
want
the server
server zero, right?
Yeah, but if you zero it, but don't,
can-
to someone wants to have a placeholder for next year.
Right.
And they're
Right.
gonna.
Well, then move it.
These things.
Well,
They could, well,
no, I mean,
it's really
DBW
big-
has plow trucks. so-
critical.
They'll
It's
present it
gonna
next
pay and
year.
they'll find the money for it.
No, I'm talking about the plow truck.
Oh, the truck, oh, yeah, sorry.
Things if they
for the
need 'em.
school, right,
Oh, the plow truck for the school.
for the school.
I
Does it
think
need
that's
its
a
own plow
no.
truck is the
Right,
question.
but if it's a no, but it, you're right, but. are they
So there
gonna
should
need
be
it
a
the
note to
following
the
year?
right that
Not if
says,
it's Doing its job, right?
well, the note should say, can the
Is this for
DPW
fund or what?
handle the plowing?
Yeah,
I don't know
It goes
what
right
it's
to the
for,
department.
and there was a
Really?
question that came
Yeah.
up from a citizen at one point
Trucks,
about,
yeah,
we're plowing.
50K.
Churches?
Well,
I'm taking it
that
out.
would be the, so tell them to.
But not the school.
Yeah, plow the playground before you plow the church. So I think you can take it out.
So I think
so,
my feeling about the plow truck is they have one. It looks like it needs work.
Yeah,
They need to justify it to us. We're not gonna fund it this year.
right.
I think the other one is the server room, and, you know, normally what we do is they come before us and they talk about it before we start cutting things and adding things, right?
Yeah,
I think we need them to, like,
They
you know,
need
if
to-
they've come to us and justified tractor replacement. This is just a cut at it, right? We haven't heard their justification.
I know.
That's a good point.
Right.
It's preliminary.
But we're getting a sense.
Although I think they've done some of that with FinCom.
Yeah, but.
No, they actually
Let
haven't.
us decide.
yeah.
They
right,
actually,
right.
no, but I mean, I agree with,
Yeah.
Nathan, they have not apparently done much on the capital side of things.
Yeah,
Right.
and we need to hear it too.
We
We,
need to-
you know, we always hear it all. They always present it to us.
All right,
And
so
then-
make that zero for now and let's see what,
You
we're
didn't need to
Yeah.
say it that way, Bernie. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
so let's see what the total is.
all right.
I like the way you think.
459.
So now I've got, what do I have?
That's, yeah,
459.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Right.
not so bad.
I think that's pretty good. So let me go over my bidding again. The free cash started at 1.4. 200,000 went to OpEx, leaves you 1.2. 250,000 went to warrant articles, that leaves you at 950,000. 450, I'm gonna call it, goes to this curated capital list if this becomes the list. That leaves you exit the year with 500,000 of free cash. Ryan believes that we generate free cash at the rate of about 400,000 a year. So this time next year, if we did all these things and everything worked out, we start the year with 900,000. Again, that's above our 12% floor, right?
Right.
Self-imposed floor.
Right.
So now you have 900,000. And as you can see, and we'll set aside next year's doesn't have the big step increase with CCHS, so presumably we're not using free cash on the operating side.
Right.
Warrant articles, who knows? I'm just gonna skip that. And now we're here now, a year from now, and we're looking at this 1,000,006 or something. With
Plus
900,000.
potentially the
Well, I understand. I'm
facilities,
just saying,
police and fire, yeah.
900,000 to play with.
Right.
I
And
just want us to.
Minus the next year's peak that we're expecting.
no, the,
2
Good
years.
point. No, he's right. Well, 2 years.
It's 2
It
years.
depends when you. account
so
that.
the question is, do we put some of it in stabilization? Just to ensure.
I
that
think you
we-
live to
it
fight
doesn't-
this year, but yeah, right.
So that it doesn't, look like we have a lot of.
Now, there are, Aubrey, can you
Yeah.
scroll up on 25? I just want to point out that there are, I believe in 25, there's some things that would be debt funded, right? There's a big, like, $800,000.
Oh, that's
fire
right. Yeah, the fire
That number
trucks.
should go away, because that would be debt. So,
Yes,
Yeah,
right, so if you
Well,
just,
you
for
might
the
need-
purpose of now, just make it zero.
But $800,000 fire. truck.
850, right?
850.
That's in future years, okay.
No, but it
did
will be
we
debt
get
funded.
figure out? Oh,
it's
'cause
not
that's
this
debt,
year,
that's
it's
not-
next,
Right,
and it's
right.
next year.
And I don't know what else, you want to
Fine.
just scroll up again, just to
Sure.
take a quick look at whatever else.
You took
Just
it
so
out,
that we sense of our cash use, right?
okay, because you want only to have what we're doing with free cash on here.
Yeah, I
not
want us to
everything.
sense our
Because
use of
this
free
is a
cash.
capital plan and it should show you everything.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think he's just temporarily.
Okay.
I'm
all right,
just,
all
I'm
right,
just
okay, I just
trying to
wanted-
get in a
that's what-
calibration. Don't go too fast, okay. Okay, so we got another dump truck, by the way,
Yeah,
okay, and then some other stuff. Okay, keep going. I guess,
yeah, that's
I
a
don't really have a way
heavy
to
year.
curate this too well, but.
That's a big year, that one.
But it's a big year, so let's just play out the game here for a minute.
Yeah,
Elevator in town
Pick
hall,
it-
maybe
pick
that's
up
ARPA, so make
pick-
zero.
Pickleball courts there.
Well, pickleball is another year.
Is
so
that
let's-
there?
wait,
Oh, geez.
Pickleball will be CPA. is my
200.
understanding.
oh, that's, oh, because you took the
So
ARPA.
you can make the pickleball zero as well, because
Okay.
that's CPA.
Well,
You could note
okay,
that.
I don't think we
Okay.
should be messing with future.
Well,
years.
it's only a thought, actually, come on.
This is my version of my
Yeah,
computer.
It's not
Okay.
going anywhere. I
Okay.
just want us to understand.
Good,
So,
good, good.
all right, so again, we start 25 with 900,000. I
Yeah.
don't know if we're allocating any reserve like Nathan said, but, and you have 600, I mean, it's okay actually with me. I think what this tells me is our little, pad of 1.4 million, if we're careful, I think we can stretch it probably fiscal 24, fiscal 25, and fiscal 26. Again, we're gonna replenish some of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And manage some version of this capital list. And that was kind of my main thing when I was, I don't know, if arguing is too strong a word, but when I was debating with Ryan at the last meeting, that you can't make these capital decisions in a single year, with a single year window, because you don't know what's coming down the pike. This tells me at least that for the next 3 years, with some changes, of course, we could probably manage our cash, use free cash.
I'll tell you, the one that's a little bit, that's scary is fiscal 27.
Fiscal 27 is
It's-
scary,
it- it's
because we're gonna
scary.
have that same 300,000,
Yeah,
400,000.
Bump at the
And,
school.
and we have this is capital, and we have a bump at the school.
Right,
So,
But you gotta look at that. We didn't go
so
at that.
that's where I do think we
So,
do
yeah.
need stabilization, because we might need to be doing some, yeah, I definitely.
I think in 27, we would be taking a much closer look at these.
Well, I would say
I
in that,
agree, but
They're
the
kind of a
thing,
dream right now. Yeah.
but,
I agree,
Kate,
but the thing is.
Kate, the
some of them
the
are
HVAC
Something else.
in there is 600,000, in that 990 is 600,000 of it is an HVAC upgrade for the school, which is beyond the ARPA year, but it would be that, pardon me, presumably, you start getting into those numbers.
Yeah, well,
They
that,
ask
but
for
that's,
HVAC work every year.
What's that?
yeah, they asked for
They
it.
ask for HVAC work every single year.
So,
They wanted 300,000 for the Wilkins this year,
right.
and
So
we're doing it for 110, so I don't know where that 600,000 comes.
Yeah,
So I think, I just want to summarize what I think that we've just done. Okay?
Yes,
So we've gone through our operating budget and we've kind of done a pretty good spitball on what we think should be in it. We have figured out how we will pay for part of the increase in our assessment for the school through the stable, through the free cash.
Yeah.
We've gone and done kind of a pretty good spitball on the warrant articles, what we would support and what we wouldn't, and how it would be funded, and on the capital expenses. However, this is not what we're agreeing to. We're not gonna, because we still need to hear the justifications from everybody. And there may be something that we cut that we want to do,
Mhm.
and there may be something that we don't want to do after they've talked about it.
Mhm.
That's where I think we are,
Okay,
right? Yeah,
Did we have a full conversation on the deficit analysis of the other items? So, I mean, we went through each one and discussed, but I guess we talked about how we're funding those?
so which one's
Yeah.
the 3%, the,
Yeah,
Oh, yes, yeah.
Well, yeah, that was what we, yeah.
so I think what I propose.
We've all
We haven't
agreed.
decided what we're doing, we haven't decided if it's 3% or not, but we've decided that that's close enough for us to keep talking about it. We didn't reject anything. And we said that that would go into the operating expense. And we would offset that because the peak for the school, we would pay for that out of the free
Free
cash.
cash.
But we haven't agreed to any of those things yet.
But that keeps the
We can.
rate increase at around 3.1%.
Are you saying that because there's things there that you might not support?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I come back to how we're gonna pay for all these things.
Right.
And I.
Well, that's what
think-
we were kind of laying out, right?
So
I
I
think
think
that's
what we've
weird,
done,
yeah.
I feel like what we've done is we've said, okay, here's what we're thinking. Can you rerun all these numbers for us so that we can see where it lands?
Right.
And then we may have to go back and say, we're gonna change this number, we're gonna change this.
And it seems to me that we do that with FinCom on the 28th,
Yes.
right? We have a
Right.
Well, I think we should, through
discussion.
Brian, these comments come back to them so they can.
Right, they see it
They can work
beforehand,
it,
but
and then we come together.
I don't know that they're meeting again, but maybe they are. Maybe
No,
they're
they
gonna
should be
meet
meeting
next
every
week,
week.
but,
See a big
And then-
question mark over your head,
Over Travis's head.
Travis.
Yeah, I mean, because, I mean, we're trying to work all this in and we're trying to say yes to everybody. And we really have, I mean, we cut out a few things out of the capital budget and stuff, but we're really, I don't know. I feel like that cash has to come from somewhere. It's not free. This is just.
But, I mean, but let's, okay, so,
And I know we're talking about, well, we're kind of evening out over years and we're gonna,
no, I mean, okay. We have an operating budget that presumably FinCom and the departments and Ryan and everybody has curated wherever.
Right.
Are you delving into that, the level service?
no.
Okay.
no, he's talking about the
Okay.
things beyond the guidance.
Okay, now we get this bucket. So
Right.
I'm with you. If there's things you're not comfortable with. I mean, for me personally, I'm not sure that we need to do the wage. I'm not convinced. I think to my view is COLA definitely, insurance, I believe, is important optically for our workforce. And the COHS. And I'm not convinced completely that if we're really being tight, that the wage adjustments need to be this year, in the year that we have all these other things going on.
Mhm.
And the sustainability coordinator, you know, I'm torn because honestly, I believe we need to actually be consistent with the wishes of what we heard the town say, that you need to start being sustainable, but it is staff creep.
Right.
And anytime you add staff, you're adding to the total. So I'm certainly not in favor of using ARPA funds for the reasons that you indicated. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. So I think we need to. reach
But
a
we need more
consensus.
information then.
Well, I don't know.
No,
I don't know if
again,
we need more information. I
we-
think We need to
we-
reach a consensus.
We talked about this at the beginning of the meeting tonight. We went through those items that are listed under deficit analysis, which is kind of weird, right? But these outside the guidance requests. And I thought we had agreed we would, in principle, support these. We wanted to try to figure out then how you would pay for them. And then we went through this exercise, which involves taking some of the free cash that we have above what we think is a more than conservative
Yep.
line of 12%, right? We're saying we want to make sure we have
Right.
12%, and we've got a significant amount of money above that in free cash. So we've gone through an exercise to look at how we might pay for including these items, except the clerk stipend, in the operating budget. And the free cash we've identified would be paying for the part of the operating budget that is that $300,000 increase.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's, what's the right word? It's,
Offsets, actually.
it's however you want to apply the free cash, whether it's to the increase in the regional assessment or it's to these additions, is somewhat semantics, right? Because we're basically taking free cash to fund something,
Some other priorities.
some other priorities,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so we figured out a way that we could pay for this. And so if we're back to discussing whether we think we need to, whether this would be these are useful, important things to have as what we're offering as a town. Let's go back and have that conversation. I think that figuring out how to pay for it, we've come up with a way to do that, right? And FinCom can further,
Right.
Number crunch, and the finance committee, the team can too, but so if we're back to, do we support these as priorities for the services we want the town to be offering? Let's go back and have that conversation. But we have gone through the exercise to figure out how we could do that from a money standpoint.
Right. I'm in agreement, and I followed this whole thing.
Yeah.
I've been part of this. I'm back to that point, Marnie, where I'm saying everyone's just assumed, okay, well, we know now we can pay for it, let's go. And I thought, but maybe I jumped the gun. We're gonna have that discussion.
Well, I guess the question is, now that we've done this, let's go back and look at these. Are we in agreement that we want to have these included in the operating budget? And I thought we had, if it's I mean, I hear David raising wage analysis now as one of them, and I know sustainability. I thought we had concluded that COLA at 3% and the 1% for the health insurance increase, knowing that we'd continue that beyond the first year, that we were in agreement on that.
I think from my perspective, we agreed to them in principle and then
Yeah.
we go back, which is what you
Right.
just said.
Right,
We're going
I
back.
don't think that we ever said
okay,
Oh, yes,
3%.
okay.
We said
so
we would
let's-
do it.
All
we'd
right,
come
so
back.
let's,
Is this?
Right.
Well, that's what I brought up.
Right.
I was
Okay.
concerned that we were all in and we're like, okay, we're gonna pay for it and we're all moving forward. And I was just saying,
Okay.
I'm putting the
Let's-
brakes on it, just saying,
The bad guy,
yeah,
okay? Opinion.
Your shoulders are
Let
broad.
let me be the bad guy. 3%. Okay, if you dropped the 2 6s and the 1.75, on average, it's really around 2.75% or maybe even a little bit lower. Plus, we're doing the 1% in the next year. So I just want to put it out there. I'm not saying I don't support 3%.
Okay.
But it's a big number, and particularly considering what we were seeing the other towns doing. Yes, the average was about 3%, but there were some outliers that were really throwing that number off.
Yeah.
6% is huge, right? So I'll just put that out there.
so let's just focus on that one then, for now.
I could support 2.75.
I mean, I'd love to see that spreadsheet again, but I think that it
Yeah, we
went to 1.7, 2.7 something.
3 or something, yeah.
Cutting out one of the 6s and the 1.75.
Okay, so, well, let's just
But let-
do the math. here.
Okay, I want to say one clarifying thing though, when you say adding the 1%, but just remember, that's not going to
Not
go
gonna-
into effect in terms of people's pockets until FY twenty-five.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, so the impact on next year's budget
Right.
would be
Well, every-
just the 3%,
But
the
in that
FY
year,
twenty-four
we're committed
budget.
to That 1%.
Every percent is,
Correct.
in today's payroll, every percent is 56,000. So a quarter
On the
percent
COLA.
cut is 14,000.
That's,
So I mean, sure,
Yeah.
but it's little. I mean, I get it.
And I
but it's-
also,
I just want us to be.
I feel given this, where we are in terms of the country and Massachusetts and inflation, if we can afford to do it, I think the COLA is the most equitable way, right, to provide people with some additional.
well, in the past,
But,
in
I mean,
fact, we
Nathan's
have
right.
said
Most
that
of
it
the,
was
most of the
not
lines start with
the
a,
most equitable way.
most of
because-
those lines start with the number 2. Yeah.
Right, I get it.
Because the people that make more money get more money because it's a percentage.
That's
So the
true.
higher paid people
That
get
was always
more,
the Alan Lewis thing, give
Yes.
everybody a flat.
which is why I'm so much in favor of the wage analysis.
Yeah,
So,
and changing,
Wait,
yeah.
so, I mean, I'm sorry that Ryan isn't here. I might even say, what if, you
Wage
know,
analysis.
what if we gave a 2.5% COLA to everybody, but we put the 1% in steps, gave everybody did the 1%.
Is that 79
Or
have
whatever.
step for this year?
That would actually
Abby?
cost us even.
Price
They
tag.
probably would, okay. I- yeah, but you
79
don't
does
get
not
into
include a 1% step.
Whatever, I don't know.
Right, that's just.
Goes
the-
into-
Yeah.
Goes into 25,
Well,
Right.
so they wouldn't see that.
So we could, you're right, that's
Anyway,
another
but-
way to think about it. We go do even without the evaluation process, right? We give
Yeah, but
everybody at the beginning of FY twenty-four, that 1%, they get a 1% bump in their salary.
And not
as well
everybody
as
gets the
the-
1%, only the people that weren't going to get their steps this year. So there's a quarter of the people, what is it? Quarter of the people were going to get their step this year. And 3/4 of the people don't get the step, or was it the other way around?
I thought he said.
Probably a quarter.
A quarter of the people are getting a step, so 3/4 of the people are only going to get COLA. And, and they
and
might get a,
Potentially some wage.
actually,
increase.
yes, but some
for the
people
middle
might
level.
only get COLA.
Right,
Which is why
Right.
I'm kind of wishing that we did have the step already this year.
Mm,
And I would reduce the COLA
mhm.
to balance, you know.
You
balance
can
that
do
out.
that. I mean, we can call it a step, but really, is it substantively different?
That's
How
why
is
I
it
think we
different?
can't-
I don't
we
know.
Can't look at all these things individually, because another thing that I wanted to bring up was we are coming into a period of time when we know we're going to be needing to hire people.
Right.
We need to be
Yes.
an attractive town for that
Right.
hiring.
Right.
And I'm wondering if there's things that we can change here, levers that we can change here that would allow us to increase that insurance number. Because that's when you're,
Right.
when you're
Yes.
taking a job,
Right.
Right.
that's a big thing.
I would almost ask our administrators what they think as far as the best levers, because they're the
Well,
people on the
Aubrey-
front
Well,
line
Aubrey would
trying
know
to
that.
hire.
That-
They're the ones that
I
just started working.
I have to say, yeah. Well, I have to say,
right,
when I was
maybe-
looking at the school bumps, I was thinking, gee, on some of those years, we should maybe be raising the insurance 2% those years, because we're not paying it in the school. You know, or, you know,
Yeah,
it
but
shouldn't
coming up later.
necessarily just be 1% every year. Some years, maybe we could do it 2%, and we'd be done sooner, and we'd have a better,
Or maybe this year we do it too.
or maybe this year we do 2%. And then we don't give,
Hmm.
you know. Yeah.
I mean, we're second guessing, right?
I know, I was,
There.
I thought that the wage analysis kind of, Ryan did mention there would be some internal savings relative to time and kind of getting us on the right path. You don't think so?
It's gonna be minimal. I
Minimal.
think, but-
All right.
Oh, I don't know about
Aubrey, what do
minimal.
you think?
So I will say, we are losing a staff person to, more pay and benefits. And I think there is something to be said about, having to train people, when they leave for somewhere with better pay and benefits and having to start that all over again. And that's not a metric that, I can calculate right now, but, that's out there and that has to be considered as well, how much time that takes.
We don't
So
want,
the
right,
pay-
I mean, the
pay
broad,
part, That's the wage,
That's the wage.
right?
the wage and the
Do you have
ben,
any
to your
problem?
point, the benefits as well.
Right.
Right, and I mean, listen, I run the same thing in my own business. It's a war for talent, and retention is important, so I'm all in favor of things that will help retention.
Yeah,
And that's why I believe health insurance, whether we do the one now and later, or we do more of it now, I think we have to get ourselves to market.
that.
We gotta get to market. My personal feeling, but I have no data, is that if you promise and you honor the promise, that most of the people will say, okay, I can see the path and I'm willing to, ride it out. Whether that helps us in a recruitment, I can't answer.
Yeah.
It's better to have a
No,
burden.
that helps us
But
with.
the people who are here, I think.
May
will-
help
will-
keep them here.
Might help keep them here. I think cola is really important. I think everybody faces the gas pump and the eggs and the who knows what, and they feel it and they want to see it, even if it's small money. They want to see it in their paycheck. They don't, nobody wants to feel like they're losing ground to. Because that means you're actually earning less, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's really important, even though it's expensive. And the other stuff, driver doesn't count, but I mean, the two big ticket items there, I just can't make as compelling like an emotional argument.
Okay, the two big ticket items are,
The remaining ones are the wage analysis at
Oh.
80 and the.
yeah, but talk about not only retention, but hiring. We can't hire if we don't do that.
So go for it.
The wage change.
Yeah. the way they- Yeah,
No, I'm
yeah,
fine with
you
it.
can't do one and not the other.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
So I think the only outstanding one is sustainability. At the beginning of this year, this board got together and we did goal setting.
Right.
We looked at the master plan. Seems to me, that sustainability was on the top of the list. We set up a whole brand new committee and we
Yeah, yeah.
said, give us a work plan.
Right.
And they gave us a work plan that requires some
Somebody to do. something.
staff time because generating reports and stuff like that. So I think we now we're at the
Yeah.
point where we have to put our money where our mouth is.
Well, let me ask, let me ask a question about that. So actually, I have two questions. Let me ask them both. One would be, can this be grant funded? And the second is, we are paying for somebody now. What did we get out of that? What did we get out of the investment that we made this year? And I think we paid for somebody several years ago. What did we get? Or maybe it was just a grants person.
No.
You want to feel it?
Yeah, but anyway, it was somebody for the energy committee.
Yeah.
Well, what we got from the energy committee one was several grants and we got streetlights and a number of other things.
No, that was all done with volunteers.
Yeah, that was,
We didn't have any staff that did
That
the
was
green
really
communities
good.
work.
I
Was-
thought,
Besides the energy task force,
force.
yeah, did all of that.
but they wrote grants to get.
They wrote-
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
they
So
did
it is-
reporting.
I think
Oh.
I can
The
answer part
point
of
being,
Nathan's question.
that's why that committee eventually dissolved because they
Of
were
course.
burned out and then the few that were remaining, there was a real conflict between some of the members, so.
I'm not sure a grant will
Disbanded.
fund the position, but the position will get grant. So there will be an offset. We don't know what it is, but my understanding, right, is that is part of the job rec will be to write these grants.
Absolutely, it's in there, yes.
So I think ideally that person would pay for him or herself over something. But right now we have to make a commitment. So on the second part of the question, we shared a resource with Westford. And I think the feeling is, I'll speak for Ryan since he's not here, that rather have a staff person that's here that works for our town planner and therefore the planning board and does the things we specifically need doing. And I think you had a conversation with Madeline that sort of supports that, right?
Yeah, Matt, well,
What did we get out of this town, this the person we hired?
As a public, meeting,
And how is this gonna be, how are we gonna manage this differently?
because it's our own resource.
and because we're talking about a job description that's really defined.
I think it was actually I'm just thinking, just remember, I think that we shared somebody with Concord at one point.
Yes, that's the person that we
Yeah.
shared. And
They wrote grants.
they did write grants. And as I recall, we got a lot of money in for things that we wanted to do.
A good grant writer ought to be able to pay for their,
But again,
Yes.
you can't count on that,
but you
right?
can't count on.
And that's
Right.
not the sole purpose of that particular
No, it's not.
position. The
right.
Thing is, though, that, is that it's not just the feature of this particular committee. This would be somebody who's working in town who is helping to promulgate the goal of sustainability
Right.
all the town
Right, build it into the DNA.
departments. And
And
you need to have
actually help-
somebody to
Right.
hear the daytime, during daytime government
Right.
to get that job done. You can't do that. with
Well, an
nighttime
example,
government.
I mean, a very small example, but an example is, what's going to happen with the Green Owl Barn program is Ryan, the highest paid guy in the building, is gonna spend time researching quotes on how to, and that little kind of job would not be, that would be done by, everything we do, you turn it over to the sustainability person and say, please.
And it
But I
would
think
be
he's
directed by
doing,
the
he's
town
getting a
planner.
quote and he said, I'll
I'm
just
just-
get it in that quote. I mean, with the MFC, we take into consideration those environmental sustainability goals. And so we've already made allocations, dollar value allocations of $8,000 more on, things that are environmentally sustainable.
Okay.
So I think that it's starting to get baked in the ethos of these
Yeah,
committees
okay.
anyway. And
Anyway,
I'm
okay.
just, here we talked about it tonight with Greeno. I mean, we all kind of are moving that
Think-
direction.
Right.
So I just, and
Yeah.
I look at this and I say, well, we've got all these goals. We've got, environmental sustainability, which is important, but we've also got fiscal sustainability and we've got, Carlisle character. And we think about all these and we've got to assess what's
get a
really
coordinated-
important.
So,
Right.
the MFC
Well,
looked to see if there were any grants to cover that extra $8,000 extra expense, because I bet you there's grant money out there.
Somebody's got-
Well,
Well, and
do we want just a grant writer and then have a generic grant writer? I
Well,
mean, is
No,
that what?
because, I mean, for instance, one of the things that Madeline pointed out to me was that, things, we get, state mandates or we get state policies or even new legislation. And trying to understand what it is that we're required to do with that now. She said, they don't have the capacity on the planning board to, they just don't have the ability to read those things and be able to understand what's required or what changes are happening and how it affects a place like Carlisle. Or if, for instance, if proposals are going to be made around zoning changes that have to do with sustainability, is the zoning board of appeals gonna have a volunteer, one of the members figure out the impact of that and what it would mean to implement some change? Or, there are numerous other things that I don't know what they are, but to change the way we operate as a town, and then also to change how residents operate is the point of having that resource available in town hall, I think, in a way that we don't have it now. And we can ask different staff people to do those individual things, but it takes away from what they were their primary job. So,
I think it's
and-
also
and
part of the
Nathan, I
reorg.
wanna-
Yeah.
yeah, I want to go back to just what did we get out of this? I think that's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
Publicly.
Right.
And,
You Check the
So-
participants,
Yeah, right now,
can you
Debbie
just,
Bentley's here. Saying,
Yeah, I think-
well, I think Mary Lynn's still on, isn't she?
I was thinking about
For the
Yeah,
mosquito.
Mary
who
Lynn's
Sue
here.
Thomas was on.
Sue Thomas is no longer on.
Anyway,
Well,
so what the grant position and the work and the way that it's both sharing it with another town was difficult, the supervision and the setting a work plan for that position was very difficult and not very functional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the way I feel about where we are right now is, we've gotten a pretty good idea on like what we want to do. There's still some levers that we can push and pull in order to maybe pull some things out. And so, and I think that we also need a lot more input not necessarily on this particular row or something else, but certainly on all those capital items and things like that.
That's clear.
And then I think we just need to think long and hard about, you know, again, I'm not saying I am against some of these things, but we're saying, you know, inflation and everything. Citizens of Carlisle also are facing the same inflation. And, you know, we need to really think hard about, you know, we said $500 on average. You know, let's look at these numbers and see, is there something else we can do? We have residents that their, you know, taxes just went up. What was the number they were saying? Like $2,500 or something like that. And then this is gonna be another, because those were all in the 1 million range. There's gonna be another $500 that they're hit with within a year.
Right.
And I just think that, you know, I think that we just really need to be, you know, again, I'm not saying, I don't think that we should fund these things. I would just like to really see the numbers and where we ended up with that increase and make sure that before I'm willing to say we're gonna do all these things, including some of the other things in the operating budget, I'd like to know where we have exactly ended up in impacting Carlisle residents on the taxes.
Right, but I guess I agree with it at the philosophical level, but again, I'll ask the same question I asked Travis. Do we as a board want to dive under the hood of the base level service budget that is going through this Ryan FinCom process? That's the first piece. That's the 30-something million dollar piece, right? Before we get.
Yeah.
Is that what we want to do? Because we don't typically do that, right? We don't go line item by line item.
Typically we do with FinCom. Right? We have always gone.
Yeah, but didn't we
Through
do
the
some
budget.
of that? I
Well,
thought
we did it
that in
with
that.
the, I
It's
think,
not line
Nathan,
item, but
you did not, join that, FinCom meeting, you know, it was on a Monday night.
Yep.
And that's where Lynn did that. And that's where we could ask questions if we wanted to.
But typically in the select board meeting, we also do it because it's the select board public meeting. Where we're.
Well, it was a joint meeting. We can do it again, but it was a joint meeting. We spent a couple hours doing it.
Yeah, that was optional for select board members, so I think,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Right.
You
So we can do
encouraged
that
to
again,
go,
but-
But it was optional.
But I'm
right?
I'm not questioning everything that it is.
Well, let's remember, we have the opportunity to do this with the FinCom on the
Right.
28th. And that is not the end of it, right? We will see where we come out
I
on
know,
that.
but
And in March, ideally, we have something,
Right, but I want to understand, I guess.
you want to
the-
understand.
Well,
where
from a philosoph, you know, at a high level, what I'm hearing, and I agree with it at philosophy, so now I'm sort of at action. If we say, probably not a bad thing, you know, a bunch of people got a big tax increase and everybody's sort of super sensitive. Then maybe 500 is not the number, maybe 0 is the number, or 250 is the number, but you can't have an infinite number of variables, you'll never get anywhere. So if we were to lock on what we thought was, you know, a reasonable increase for the $1 million average property. Some are gonna be deck houses and have a big thing, and some aren't, you know, we can't solve for all that. And we also say how much free cash are we comfortable using for operating expenses based on the facts of the assessment. We have a window of free, and then those line items 8 through 12, you know, are they nice to haves or are they must haves, right? I mean, yes, there may be some nips and tucks we can do on the base level service budget, but it won't be much. Right? It won't be much. So I don't think we should leave just saying, well, we'll look at the data, because we have a lot of the data. We ought to get a consensus of where we think we are. I mean, I'm hearing.
I agree, because the finance committee is asking for that. They
Yeah.
want our guidance as to
Right.
what are the priorities, and this is kind of the clear cut,
Right.
this is where you have to make decisions and
So
say,
there might
Right.
be, you know, 50 or 100K somewhere in the base budget that we haven't uncovered, but we kind of think on that. Did that for.
Well, in fact, I think Ryan took some of that out of that.
He did do, that's what he just
those
scrubbed out.
Expensives, yes,
Right,
he's
he
already
just-
done
thank you,
that.
He did scrub out, right.
Scrubbed, he
So
scrubbed
going back
150.
to, I just would like to get the sense of, let's start with the first thing. What average tax increase are we comfortable with? we started by saying 500, but, or 3%, but
Right.
is 3% or should it be less? Like to know, what do people think?
I'm comfortable at the 3%, because I think that there's, just personally philosophically, I really want to make sure we pay attention to people's tax bills.
No,
And I
absolutely.
don't,
That's probably the top priority.
and I really think that's important. So, but I think there's some reasonable increase every year because there's just inflation, and we've
Right.
inflated much more than 3%.
Right.
And I think that, we can manage to a 3%, and I would feel comfortable.
And I agree.
With that.
I agree with 3%.
I agree with 3%.
Okay.
I think that that is the absolute highest.
Right,
Yeah,
so
it
we
is.
should- so that's
That's
important.
what they're saying.
Mine
That's
too.
the
That's an important thing for us to tell FinCom,
Right.
no more than
3%,
3%. So that's, okay.
period.
So now, given 3%, which is the math we worked on, and given that we would need to, can you go, Aubrey, to which, I think it's the TA budget. I guess.
The budget notes 12 to 13
Yeah, the very last,
or 1 to
the
23.
TA budget. Yeah, the TA budget notes. Maybe that's where we are, right? That's where we
Yeah,
are.
that's where I'm on.
Yeah.
Go down a little. So
Oh, okay, there we
is
go.
that the one?
What are you looking for?
I'm trying to reconcile. So 3% without these ads, if we took the cuts but not the ads, we make the 3% without any free cash.
Oh, in fact, we make less than 3%.
Yeah, right,
Right, okay.
right.
So we have room for
For a few.
100,000.
Right.
Right.
We, in fact,
I think we have room for about 100,000 of, for ads with that, right?
yes,
Okay.
but that's not even including,
Right.
not
So,
including free cash.
We're back to the
Right.
five
We're
things.
183 too.
Prioritize, and that's what I.
So let's just
key here.
prioritize them. Everybody should give their priority.
Do we know what's in the 375,000, the 3% increase for the schools?
Oh, mhm.
They've given us a
I don't-
preliminary budget,
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Was that in that income?
I
Yes,
thought it was
it's-
higher than 3%. I thought it was like 3 point something.
Well, this is 3.02 for CPS and 8.66 for CCR.
Right.
yeah, but that 8.6 is hard to tell because it's not the budget, it's our portion of the budget. So,
Right.
but for the schools, the CPS budget, there were a couple of new positions, support
It's
positions,
just three.
3 new positions. Well, that will give you the 3, that's
It's
right.
our expense.
Based on the, the population that it's currently at the school or one of them, I think, is an incoming student.
And-
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 is historically in line with where they are usually, right? That's
3.8.
typically-
3%.
They were higher before,
I mean, we
you know,
just
at
said
the start of
3%.
this
for us
project.
too, was 3%,
Yeah.
right? So,
They were higher.
I mean, 3%. And by the way, if we flattened every line item, like, didn't add those things and still came in with a COLA of 3%. I mean, it's not all wages, but we would.
Well, okay, I really think we need to,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah, we have to come.
as
to
they
some
say, you know
conclusion.
what, or get off the
Right,
pot.
right, so
So,
I'm with you. So what do you want to?
Let's,
Cut bait for-
You want
yes,
people to
there you go.
rate it? I mean,
well,
Well, I
so
do think we have-
maybe we could either do rank order, we could see what we're all agreed on
Yeah.
and then go down. And then we could take that and say, we want to see what it looks like if we did it with these items included, or this larger set of items included, or all of them included. You know what I mean? We could see the impact with these other changes that we've made and take a look at that. Have Ryan or Kim or whomever prepare that for us and so we can see it
but it
next
won't
week.
be-
Um,
How would it be different than what we're looking at? I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you give guidance, no more than 3% tax increase,
Correct.
no more than, I'm just making it up,
Yeah.
no more than 200,000 of free cash use for operating expenses. And, what was the third thing? The third thing would be,
Well. the-
we
the capital-
support some, maybe a rank ordering of these things and let them sort of solve.
Well, with this, Well, but this
Well,
is
okay.
covered by $200,000 of free cash.
Okay, then.
Yeah, so, but, let me go to the one that we seem to be having most sustainability, that position. Let's just do a show of hands. Okay, straw poll on that one. Do you support the town creating that position in the FY '24 budget? Raise your hand if you do.
I want to have the conversation with FinCom on the 28th. I'm still where I was before, where let's put this in there. And let's see how it looks without us just cutting in.
Okay.
Things
Yeah,
and have the new final thing and then hear from FinCom. You know, their opinion on what this means, but also hear more about those.
They
other-
are looking, in order to do
Okay.
that, they
They're
want a
looking to
recommendation.
us to be
Right.
the guide.
So,
They've asked that, Scott.
And we're giving them the
Specifically-
okay.
but you're saying, so Nathan, you're
We're saying
suggesting we
putting
put
this in,
these,
but let's
put these
change the word,
in
but there's-
to show that we are,
It's preliminary,
we're
but you're saying
considering-
recommended.
we're
So-
considering, including these
they have to
in
give
the
it back.
operating budget. When we have that presented,
Yeah.
get the numbers for that. But then we go into the discussion with the FinCom with the idea of, we want to hear where they are. We want to look at the operating budget
Yeah.
items that might be
Yeah.
worth, spending a little time on. And then where do they come down on these
Right.
positions? But again, as Travis is saying, they don't want to be setting policy,
No.
right? They want us to be saying
Right.
what we
Correct.
would
So I
like
think
to. have.
we should straw poll our feeling like you said, and give them that input. What I'm hearing is that we have 100% support for line 25 drivers, right?
And the easy one, yeah,
And stipend if we need it, I guess.
but that's gone if
Okay,
we
no,
do
I
the
understand,
wage,
okay.
okay?
And I
Yes.
think I heard 100% for at least the 1% health insurance, maybe even more, but.
Is that
Is
fair to
everyone
say?
on Board with that?
Is
I don't,
1%
anyone not on board with
insurance?
I'm on board with that.
we're in-
And
Okay,
okay,
okay.
and then the,
COLA, I don't know whether what are we recommending? 2.5 or 3?
Well, again,
Then you're into how much the percentage.
Okay.
see that, exactly.
Are we in favor of a COLA?
Yes,
Okay. A COLA, not to exceed 3%.
right.
and the wage change then.
Right.
The,
Wage analysis, it sounds like everybody seems to be in favor of that. Is anybody not in favor of wage?
You're the only one that
Again,
said,
you
hey,
know,
I'm backing off. I'm saying. okay.
Now, yeah, I mean, if you're managing to a budget, you gotta make some cuts. I mean, we're always saying, oh, this is great. We're saying yes to everything. So,
we did make cuts. The above
Yeah.
here are the cuts.
We made, right. Right. And
I'm reserving the right for more cuts after we see it.
yes,
Okay.
of course,
All
we
right.
still will.
But
continue.
you're okay.
But for
and-
the guidance right now,
Okay, no, it's 2.5%.
okay.
And-
I'm here, I'm gonna be the
Then-
first. one.
Okay, but you're
Then-
we're comfortable including wage analysis in,
Yeah, I'm in
the-
agreement with, I wanna, yes.
you want to see
Okay.
all of these things included
Right.
in a
In a budget.
budget.
Okay, I'm
Then we are agreeing, though, is still up for discussion.
gonna say, I recommend sustainability,
Sustainability.
push it a year.
I do too.
Wait till FY '25.
Or permit.
Or
Say
what?
it's permit, say it's a
Permit.
2-year position.
Well, that was what Ryan
Let's see if.
thought about in
Yeah, but that's, we,
petitioning ARPA, but, Travis and I looked at each
Well, so
other,
what would
wow.
happen if we, I've
Because you don't really
not
term it.
been here
Right.
where we've had that kind of a situation where you
Yeah.
hire somebody with the idea that it's a 2-year position.
Yeah, you're not.
Now, it becomes very hard at the end of the 2 years. If, of course, it would allow us to understand what's the ability to get grant money. And it would also allow us to understand what can that actually, what value does that position actually bring to the town? But
so if it's done with
Not-
soft money,
but
like
not-
ARPA, then you can do that. Because now it's a soft money position. You tell them it's a 2-year position. If it works out, if they do a really great job and it can, there's a commitment, depending upon how it goes, putting it in the budget.
All right, so you would have to support it at the ARPA level, which
But then
Sounds
we
pretty-
need to be,
negative. on.
well, that's another,
no,
okay, so that's,
no, I would say I was negative on it
Okay.
because I don't want I don't, when we started with ARPA,
Yeah.
we try to have a set of principles so that when people from outside of this group
Right.
came, we could say, well, these are the principles we're looking. We don't want to do things that haven't been already vetted somewhere in the town. We don't want end runs around the FinCom. We don't want things that are going to cause,
The increase in
any increase
operating.
in, for, future operating budgets.
Right.
But if it comes from this,
The select
board,
We
you
can write
know,
all the rules.
well,
We
it's
should.
a different, it's a
We
whole
can write the
different
rules.
kettle of fish, let's face it.
Yeah,
So, but I think we should also in our own minds say, do we really want to spend ARPA funds?
right, be
Yeah.
130, whatever, 130,000 plus benefits.
On
Yeah.
something that might be more difficult, well, it won't be difficult. You just say, down at the end of the 2 years, sorry, sayonara, Or, but then if it was great, we have to then understand, we better find that money in 2 years from now.
You were very against the counting it, doing a term.
Well, I don't know. I just think we have a lot of budget things that we want to fund. And I look at this and just think, I'd like to be able to navigate all these things. And like you said, it would be great. I intellectually support these things, but I also support trying to, have a sustainable budget. And I just don't think that position is going to help at this period of time. And I don't think we're going to get the value from it. That's,
Well, on the other hand, though, we have a bunch of goals and we did set up this committee. How do you propose that we make any progress on those goals?
we started, we started with the committee. I mean, that wasn't even in existence. We're making progress. The committee's gonna do their outreach at the, Earth Day this year. I mean, this is a process and we're trying to do everything at once, which is great. And we've got this huge plan, the master plan to do it. But this is where we have to figure out what are taxpayers, what are people willing to fund? And I don't know, I'm just saying, I'm less inclined to do this at this period of time.
Are you
That's
comfortable
my-
though with
my opinion.
putting this in, having all of these items in a budget? For the conversation with FinCom, so entertaining these items, including the sustainability position, to see what that looks like and see what the FinCom, what their take on it is. Reserving the right for the select board as a body to go back and decide, no, we don't want to do this, that, or the other thing.
I think they were asking us for the judgment on this, of
Mhm.
trying to figure out what are the priorities and let the select
Okay.
board select those priorities. And I don't think going to them with the saying, oh, because we've already figured out if we want to pay for these things, we can do it.
Right.
We can
Okay.
do it. We have the ability to do it, though it costs something. And so it's just, I think we should figure out whether we want to do this.
Yeah, so, so you would put yourself down then as not supporting this position in fiscal 24? Right?
Yeah.
Funding this in fiscal 24, wherever the money came from. Yeah,
Generally, yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I may be on that for some of the other things
yeah,
too.
I would,
Which
I mean,
other
we've
things?
sort of
Which
gone
other
over
sorts
this-
of Things.
Well, like the COLA, I mean, as far as adjusting the COLA to figure out what's gonna be the most sustainable long-term, I mean, I think we need to hit these head on and, I'd
Well,
love to
the
give
COLA's a
everything.
one-year
but-
thing only.
What?
The COLA's a 1 year.
This year, right?
Right,
But
yeah,
it's
that,
not that.
it is, but it's not like we're saying it's COLA 3% forever and ever, amen. It's 3% this
But
year.
Yeah.
I get it that we're collective body here and we've gotta, we gotta make it work for everyone. And I'm just one voice here. So I'm willing to, work through this. But you ask, kind of, if I had to rank these, that the sustainability would be, the least priority there on this year's budget. Of the extra things that we're trying to fund.
So should we just go through and do a rank order by person? Where we were 4 minutes ago? Did we?
Sure. Let's move on, because it's really
Yeah,
getting late here.
right.
We've been at this thing since 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of that.
But see, I don't have a rank order.
I think the
I'm not
only
gonna
one is
say,
sustainability.
this is my first choice, this is my, I actually believe since we've done the exercise to figure out how we would pay for it, and because I'm comfortable with what we've done in terms of making sure we're maintaining our free cash at 12%. And in fact, we're not even, going to be a little over that if our numbers are even, fairly close to being accurate. I think all of these things are of real value. And I don't think I don't want to be conservative about our spending for the sake of being conservative, or to being able to say, we're, that we're worried about spending too much. That may be the wrong way of phrasing it, but to me, because we have this abundance of free cash, which we are very fortunate as a town to have, there are very few other towns that have this kind of a situation. I think all of these are very compelling. And, 3 of them are really focused on our staff and making sure that we can retain staff and we can recruit staff. And I think those are all very important. And we should be doing them. We should do them. And with sustainability, I think, for some of the things that Kate's articulated, we have said this is a priority. We've got a committee that's working really hard. They're not going to be able to get very much of that work plan done without some significant support. And it's something I think as a municipality, we need to take seriously. And as we've been saying, some of us saying, put our money where our mouth is on this. And so my own position is I don't want, I'd say all 4 of them should be funded. Boom, we put them in the operating budget and let's do it.
And then see what happens like Canadians.
Yeah.
All right, let's just do it.
No, I don't want to, let's vote on that. If that's, that, I should make that as a proposal, right? Somebody else needs to, or we could, straw vote, I think maybe Travis, would you be supporting that or not? If that was a motion on the floor, that we put all 4 of these in, and we say, as a select board, we do support having these things. We want to see what the money looks like.
Can I just say a counter statement to what you just said, Jen?
Sure.
And, not to be contrary, because in general, I do support all these things. I do want to take a closer look. Is it 3 or 2.75 or
Yep,
things like that?
yep.
But I just want us to remember that the reason why we have a lot of free cash is because we have overtaxed. And because we have the free cash, doesn't mean we should spend it. And because we have found out that we can afford all these things, doesn't mean we should spend the money.
I completely agree with that.
I agree with that too. I will point out though, it's not all because we've overtaxed.
We have starved ourselves.
Oh.
We've taxed for things that we should have done and then didn't do.
Right, so on that note, I ran a little
That
analysis.
doesn't mean we didn't tax. We got the money. and
I
it's-
understand, but
also
the thing is,
But some of that
this-
free
some of
cash
this-
is also because we've underestimated our revenues.
We have
Right.
money to spend because
Higher.
we've been frugal, okay? However, we got there.
but sometimes you
But
can
our
be
previous
penny wise
year's
and pound
taxes
foolish.
could have been lower.
They could have been lower.
Yes,
and
because
they
we
were.
got more revenue elsewhere, from elsewhere. Exactly,
But
exactly.
on
Yeah.
the note, on the point that Kate just made. And so if we assume, okay, whether we overtaxed or we were prudent, or who knows, we're lucky, all those things are in play. And by the way, we've been very conservative here on chapter 70. You brought up a great point. I don't know if there's any chapter 90.
Yeah.
Those things are gonna go up, new governor, blah, blah, blah. So we're probably still gonna be conservative in our assessments of how much free cash we generate. The extra free cash we have primarily because we did underspend. We underspent on capital maintenance, blah, blah, blah. We have a capital plan that's got, some big ticket items in the future. We did, I think, a nice job tonight at sort of paring that back, my own analysis on what we did suggests that this pad of 1.4 million, again, assuming 200,000 this year for this thing and 200,000 in 3 years, whatever for that, it kind of lasts out through 27. And then at that point, if we do, the fidelity of the capital plan is not good at that. There's only
Yeah.
a few ways. But that, 4 years is pretty critical, right? We've identified. And this approach that we've taken, including, by the way, spending on this, does make that cash last. And I think that's a prudent use of it. It's, maybe we shouldn't have taxed it in the first place, but it's here. I totally agree with you. Just because it's here doesn't mean we gotta spend it all in a year. We know what's coming down the pipe. I think we're being prudent. I will share that Ryan is upstairs and he said that the FinCom would like to apply more free cash to lowering the tax. So
Okay,
where they're coming.
even
Yeah.
more, okay.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing also is if we get closer to, is it 28 or 27, that our debt goes down.
that goes down, but then it comes.
We'll have the next
That's the,
thing.
Right,
that's the
right,
kabuki dance.
and that's the other
Right.
thing.
Yeah, we gotta prep for that.
Well, when we funded that,
Yeah.
part of the sale of it was that, hey, in this year, our tax is gonna go down because we're going to be losing this debt,
Right.
right? And so it's one of those things where we're just adding and adding and adding and adding. And just because we could drop the tax bill because of that doesn't mean we shouldn't, right? So I'm just saying, I don't think that we should count on that as we're gonna be able to spend more than.
We
I think
can't, we
need
can't
to
count
be-
on that. It's
we
gonna
need-
be
we
offset
need to
by
be
a new.
Careful then
Right.
about, okay, just because we can do this, should we do it?
Right.
Or should we actually cut back on the taxes?
You're talking about when our debt starts to shrink.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
it's
mean,
gonna be
we know
coincident with
it's,
public safety.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
We know we're
we
not
don't have
gonna
that
be
luxury.
able
Well,
to.
that's great, but I just don't,
Here's what we
But
can
it
say. Here's
means
what we
is that
can say.
Can borrow without raising taxes.
Right.
Whether we should
Right.
have deferred the police and the fire, probably we shouldn't have.
Right.
But we are where we are, and it just so happens that because we deferred, we are more or less level loading that kind of debt. It will come online just as the other one goes down.
Right.
Now, we weren't smart enough to plan it that way, and in fact, we're living the tough times where we're under facilitized on both of them. But the reward is, we won't be really increasing.
it worked out perfectly.
Worked out perfect.
But this is also why you keep stabilization funds, so that if you do for some reason have to
Okay, can we?
do a big
let's-
borrowing, you
Okay.
have that fund to.
So I think, I mean.
All right.
okay with
This is great. I love it.
It is
This
great.
is where the rubber meets
I
the
love
road
it.
for,
I
I mean.
That's why you joined.
Okay,
I'm
so,
okay with your
but-
proposal.
This is why we were put in this role, right, is to have these discussions.
yeah,
And
To make the
I
big
don't
money.
remember having a discussion this step.
yeah,
Where's the
Okay.
big stipend for the thing?
I took it out. We took it out
yeah,
because,
really.
because
I
the
vote we
wage,
triple our salary.
yes, no, yes,
So moved.
Yeah. All right, so folks, let's,
yes. Okay.
where are we?
So I
You have
think,
a, you have a
somebody-
proposal on the table to just tell FinCom.
To
take these
say,
things in,
if we are agreed
see what
on
it looks
this,
like, see what it looks
that we put all,
like. All the things on this page.
except the, assume the clerk stipend
that
is
Well, because
absorbed
it
by
goes-
the wage analysis, right? It goes in
Right.
there. So there are those 5 things. And we don't know exactly the percentage on the COLA. We've got 3% in here. We may want to adjust
We
that.
said Not to exceed, let them work. it
Right,
out.
right,
okay.
and
gotta give
we're
them-
looking
And
for
we're
a
thinking
tax rate.
1% on the health insurance, but,
Yes,
right, we
Yeah.
might,
right.
So
And-
the information we just got from
Yeah.
Ryan makes me think that I'm gonna wanna lower that percentage that I'm willing the taxes to go to. Because I think getting into the habit of using free cash to offset operating to keep taxes low means we're spending too much money.
So I would,
So we might have to come
Well,
back.
just
and
'cause
look at some
FinCom
of these
says-
Levels, we're,
but to your point, we sit on top of things. Just
Yes,
because FinCom said
exactly.
they want that.
but I wanna hear their reasoning.
Yeah, and it'll be probably what you said. It'll be a lot of what you said, right? There's poor people and they, they got a big increase. But I think for the first cut, I don't think we're gonna improve our position any more than we've done at this
Okay.
moment. So I'm
Yeah,
in
so-
favor of your proposal, and let's give it back to FinCom, let them.
Let them put the numbers in. We're not saying you
Right.
figure it out.
Right, I totally,
Yeah.
totally.
And.
You
and
okay with
see
that, Travis?
Where that,
I'm
It's us.
I'm not, because again, Scott Triola came to our meeting and said, we need guidance on what you guys are your priorities and what we should be kind of not focusing on and not funding. And we're just saying, oh, well, here it is, and we wanted you to focus on all of it and try and make it work, at least in my simplified
okay,
version.
I
that's-
don't think that's what we're saying. I'm saying, we think that all of these are important.
Right.
They should go in the budget, that, and that they should be funded in such a way that the tax rate does not, exceed 3% increase. And we can talk about 3%,
way,
0.75%, whatever you want, percent. And that,
No, I know
and
it's
that's what
tiny, but
drives the
that-
free cash. And that's what drives the free cash.
Right,
Discussion.
they'll come, right, they will then have to come up with a free cash.
That's right.
Because by the way, we should say also, don't fund it through ARPA, don't fund it through the ambulance reserve fund.
Yes. And I think
So
that's
they're gonna have to go back
legitimate.
and cut somewhere else.
No, they have to use more free cash possibly.
Yeah, I think that
we're
we're
But
not asking that.
That's not our purview. That honestly, the use of free cash is the FinCom's business, not our
They
business.
should come back.
All we did tonight was we said, we have enough free cash, so it can be done. They could decide not to, and they could then say, we're really not comfortable using that much free cash. You need to cut something else, and then we go back. I mean, it's an iterative process. It's
Right.
not.
Right.
This
Right,
is my
so, and-
first time through, so,
Yeah.
right, I don't know that.
So
but I
this is,
did
that's
hear
a good
Scott
thing,
say,
right? This is an
Right.
iteration.
some
Yeah.
Yes.
So can we, at 9:15, can we
I
tap
think-
this, spend a few minutes on the HR and?
Oh, Oh, my God.
I thought it was
7:30, it was 7:30.
No, we gotta do the HR.
So, I think
Okay.
I would say, I'm fine with this all going in there.
Yep.
But if they make a really strong argument, which I could totally agree with.
Yep.
That we need to get the tax number down.
Yep.
I'm not sure that I do support the sustainability person.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that I do support 3%.
Okay,
Because
Right.
I don't want those things paid.
Right.
Out of free cash.
why not?
Because it's going to hurt us the next year, because now we have the role.
no, that's right, he's
Yeah,
right, he's
okay.
totally right, he's totally right about that. And so
We
that's,
we have to reevaluate it if,
okay,
But if you tell them they don't
So
want them
can-
out of free cash, then
But
where's
it's
it
still a
gonna
free
come from?
cash discussion, you see. Comes
we
back down to-
cut from the budget further.
well, it's more than a free cash discussion, I agree with what Nathan's saying. Are we serious about bending the curve of spending or aren't? we? Whether you have free cash or we suddenly have a windfall, if Governor Healy says, you know what, Carlisle, we love your school. Please take another $500,000 in from chapter 70. It still doesn't mean we shouldn't be lean on our operating budget. It'll make our free cash look big. But so it's a complex thing, and I agree with Nate, but for the purpose of right now, this iteration, let them put it all in, give them. the
I
guidance
just wanna
and
know
come
why
back.
it's always on the town side that's getting cut and, there's nobody else that's getting.
So that's why I
Yes.
asked about the seat, the.
So go back at the school.
Right.
We.
Oh, wait a minute, we just, by the way,
Well-
it's a small thing.
We took some stuff out of their
We
capital
pushed twenty
requests.
K of what they wanted, and we said, go find the money.
Right,
Okay,
right.
right.
We did, we
Yeah,
just did.
Back
Right.
in for them to.
Okay, but I mean,
fund. Yeah,
that's
Now,
peanuts.
We haven't looked, I
Right.
mean, I'm in the last year, maybe my first term, but. And I've been a longtime FinCom guy and a longtime school guy, so I should know it better. But my experience prior to this position has not been with select board. And I ran a lot of school budgets in my time. It was me and FinCom or my board, the two boards battling it out. And then select board more or less accepting that number after it'd been wire brushed.
Hmm.
I'm okay changing, but to me, it's a change in policy if we were to go back under the hood of the CPS.
Well, we're not allowed to legally.
The only thing we could say is 3% is too much.
Yes.
Right.
You have 2%,
Yes.
and then they have to figure
And
out.
you
they have
figure out
to-
what to cut.
Yeah.
right,
Right.
right. Okay, listen, I really want us to end
Yeah,
this.
well,
I don't think we're
Humphrey wants
being,
to go home too.
I don't think there's anything new we're
Yeah, okay.
coming up with, so.
Maybe changes.
we want to make this as a motion if we do, no, we
No,
want to just say
You know
our,
the
rec-
size of the-
what we, our guidance to FinCom is, all right, we've agreed that we want to say it's, 3% is the max increase in the tax, bill.
Right.
That we want to say, we would like all of these 5 items included in the operating budget. We've made some changes in the, warrant and the capital expenses, which we want to give, have that included.
Yes.
And,
And I think we said, no more than 200,000 out of free cash for the operating budget and 200,000 for, no? But flat, okay, and no more than 200,000 for free cash for the operating budget. So if those things don't fit,
And a tax increase of 3%.
and a tax increase of
max,
max,
max.
That's our starting point.
that's our
Right.
starting.
Right.
Let's
And
put
then-
that all in and
Yeah.
let's
See
have
what it
a
looks like.
discussion
Right.
because
Okay.
there are
Exactly.
definitely things
Hey.
Okay.
we're not all in agreement.
Right.
Aubrey, have you been able to capture this?
Yes.
Okay, good, because, all right, great.
What was that first thing we said?
Yeah, really,
Start at the
okay.
beginning again?
All right.
She's kind of-
Thank you. Yeah, that, and you've got the, 3% max on the tax bill.
Yeah, I have notes
Okay.
as well.
Yeah, okay, good. Phew. Okay, guys. Listen, we gotta clear our brains a little bit and give
Yeah, can,
Aubrey the opportunity to tell us about this, bylaw
Personnel
change
bylaw.
around personnel, which we have a copy of it from before, in our packets. And, so
I'm in favor.
Aubrey, David already knows where he stands. But Aubrey, if you could just summarize
Absolutely, I'll
the
make it.
issues, yeah, and then the recommendation.
Sure. So obviously this was an initiative before I started here. The government task force already started these recommendations. So there are a few findings that I wanted to point out and recommendations for a warrant article. So one of the findings is that personnel board, as of right now, is not very efficient. I did a quick review. The last meeting they had was October 2021. They had to cancel it because there wasn't enough quorum. That was the last thing they have posted. It's really hard to find any real minutes for them either. And then I also found in some meeting minutes from other boards that they were having a hard time getting a response for position approval. So, that can really take a lot of time and, when we need decisions, that's not very helpful. And the task force also gave a lot of these findings that they interviewed staff members and found that it was not very efficient. And so they were having a hard time working with the personnel board. Another thing that they found, and then I outlined in this, is the different responsibilities they're assigned to several different people, right? The personnel board, the town administrator, maybe the select board, sometimes it's the personnel administrator, which isn't very clear, is the town administrator. There's one piece says it's an executive secretary appointed by select board, other parts say it is the town administrator, or it could be another person that's appointed, such as a position like myself. So it's very unclear. So when it comes to negotiating bargaining agreements, administering the personnel policies, maintaining the record system, the wage classification, managing the job descriptions, advertising, compliance, training, it's all across the board of who's in charge. So this does not make it clear when we have to make policy decisions, job description decisions. It's just very, very murky and it's not very efficient. And I think that, since I've started, there's always that conversation, well, what about the personnel board? But then is that even in existence now? You don't want to be held back. And it does seem like you don't actually have to go just through them because there's always somebody else who could be in charge of it. We need to make that clear. So what I'm recommending is eliminating the personnel board and making it so it's just the town administrator. I did make recommendations on some changes. It needs to be updated a little more, so it's just showing town administrator, but I think it is possible. I did reach out to regional listserv of what other folks have done, and it is possible. I did ask town council, it's also possible to just vote town meeting to eliminate the personnel board. So it is something that we can definitely do. And I think that it will just make it a lot clearer of who's in charge. I think the plan is to make it so the town administrator can appoint a position like mine to be that one individual to be in charge of managing the system.
So the, your page, the item, number 4 recommendations on page 2 of your original, as the A, we eliminate the personnel board and the personnel administrator from the general bylaws and policies. And then we move the authority to the, from the personnel board and the personnel administrator to the town administrator and their or their appointed officials. So
Right.
that's the essence of what the town meeting warrant would propose.
Yes,
And it would be in the form of a new bylaw
correct, and
Okay.
updating the policies. to match
and
that.
I
updating.
thought we already did that in the policies.
So the policies still show the personnel board.
Cause you
But
didn't
the-
have the authority to.
Yeah, because we still had a personnel board, but
Yes, so
but the
this
thing is that we made it only advisory to the
Right,
town
we-
administrator
So
there.
this would just eliminate it,
Yes,
Yeah.
this just one.
which would be nice.
Have we
And-
reached out to
Members?
any of the members or the, Snell, Patel?
So not from my understanding, the consensus I've received from staff members is that it doesn't exist. And if you have more experience with that, Ryan is still new. I don't think either of us have any contact.
So you haven't tried to call them?
When was the last time we appointed somebody to the personnel board?
That's a good question.
I think if there's anybody actively
we
appointed,
should-
we should reach out to them.
Yes.
Yeah, one woman contacted Ryan, whose name I didn't recognize from the personnel board I think it was last fall, just wondering what was happening.
Yeah.
The woman that was the chair has not been responsive to any
Vanessa.
outreach. Yeah, that happened,
But
right.
then I thought Snell, Patel, she in the chair.
I don't know.
I don't think Patel's on, she's busy.
Let me just.
So not Carrie, this
Yeah,
was her
Carrie's-
husband,
her husband.
actually. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess one request from the board would be to specifically look at who were the last people that were appointed to the committee and figure out if there's a way to reach out to each of them,
Sure.
determine whether they are, do they think they're still on the committee? And, or not even that, I guess, just to let them know we're gonna move this change.
Yes, absolutely. So
We're
Wait, so-
professionalizing HR. That's
Yeah.
basically what we're doing. We had a personnel board when we had no HR director in
Right.
the town to do the job, and now we're just professionalizing it.
So according to the website, which of course could be completely out of date,
Yeah.
but there are 2 vacant positions and only one person is still active. The other 2 would have expired last summer if they weren't reappointed. So I will verify, I will reach out to them.
Okay. Or just reach out to
Yeah,
the
that's
one that's still on there. Yeah.
After just making sure we didn't appoint anybody else, but I don't
too.
recall appointing
Casey
anybody.
Hurley,
We were,
Either.
we were gonna be evaluating this.
Ben Perry.
I have a couple of questions. So one is, one of the roles of the personnel board was to vet things. And, vet new hires, vet salary increases, and things like that, and then come to the select board with recommendations, or whoever was requesting it, it would come to the select board at budget time. That would still exist, right? It would just be you that
It would
was
be me,
doing
yes.
that.
So it's not
And
shocking.
the personnel policy as it is, as edited, would still be in effect.
Correct. So I've already been working on that, as you know, such as with the military leave policy. So that will continue to work in that manner. So we could even put that in the bylaw or the policies as well, if that's something. we'd
I
work
just think that part of just making sure that part of the essence of what the personnel board was charged with
Mhm.
is in that role that we're creating. Like, I'm assuming it's like part of somebody's job description or something.
Mhm.
But, there was a function that they were to provide, and we just wanted to know that that's the function that we're still getting in doing this. But I personally am very supportive of this. I know it was back when I was on the planning board, but certainly since I've been on the board of selectmen in 2014, I think going all the way back to 2008, when I was on the planning board, there was a long time when we were trying to implement, we did a wage and classification study.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And we were trying to implement it, but we had two people on the personnel board. They were both residents. They were husband and wife, but they didn't live in town, so they couldn't get together. It's no fault of their own. They just weren't here and we weren't able to get anybody else to be a part of it. This has been a problem for over a decade. And I think that this step is going to be very helpful, I think, in us moving forward.
I will say, I think it's becoming kind of a movement statewide, because when I did ask some local towns on the listserv, a lot of people asked me to let them know that my findings. So a lot of towns, I believe, are looking into doing a similar move.
Yeah, personnel has gotten beyond what a volunteer board can do. You know, there's a lot of issues that they're not equipped to do. And
All right, so,
okay,
yeah, let's
so,
make a motion
yes,
to accept the proposed bylaw change.
I move to include a warrant article on the May 8th, 2023 annual town meeting warrant to amend the town of Carlisle general bylaws and policies to eliminate the personnel board and personnel administrator, and to move the authority from the personnel board and personnel administrator to the town administrator and or their appointed official. Okay,
May I have a
I
second?
don't like the word official, but that's okay. Purpose, yeah.
Second?
Thank you, Nathan. All right, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right,
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
approved unanimously. Thank you for hanging in there, Aubrey, this long. Yeah.
Move we adjourn?
I move that I move to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, well done, everybody.
Thank you.
Jeez.
Yeah.
This is